Is this meeting back into order? It's now 7:40. And the first thing that we will do is a pledge of allegiance. And I'm going to ask everyone to stand. And Ms. Aruda, could you lead us?
Sure. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for everybody who is physically present here in the boardroom, make note of the exit signs so that in case of an emergency, you can leave quickly and efficiently. And also remember, there's no smoking anywhere on campus, anywhere, any of our properties. So now, I think we go to Dr. Gianni, who has something special for us.
Yes, thank you. This week we are celebrating School Board's Recognition Week, so thank you all for your service. Here in South Country, each year, one of our schools does a little something to recognize the board and thank them for their service. And this year, it's our South Haven Early Childhood Center who is our host. Due to the pandemic, however, South Haven has prepared a digital thank you for the board that we would like to play for you. So, Matt, you want to hit?
Screen sharing?
Pardon?
Non-host, could you please enable screen sharing?
Screen sharing.
Screen sharing for the
I'm going to
non-host.
screen share.
No,
You're gonna, so
you
you
have to
enable it.
enable it for the
okay.
non-host.
All right. Does that work?
Yep.
Is Cheryl gonna be able to see that?
She's got a, yeah, she's, see, because she's in there.
Oh, I see.
Here's a story about pre-K program. It's in the South Country School District. We get the kids all ready for kindergarten and teach them all their skills. Here's the story of Brian Ginty. He's the principal at our South Haven school. We all like to work together because our school is cool. Till one day when we moved to the new building, we set up all our classrooms with our toys. We were nervous but excited to meet the girls and boys. The pre-K bunch, the pre-K bunch.
That's great.
That's the way we became the pre-K bunch.
have special ones who have loved us into being. Would you just take, along with me, 10 seconds to think of the people who have helped you become who you are? Those who have cared about you and wanted what was best for you in life. 10 seconds of silence.
Wow.
Day in the life of pre-K. So on behalf of South Country Pre-K Center, we thank you for your service.
Well, on behalf of the board, we thank them for sharing a little bit of their day with us and brightening our evening and reminding us about why we're here and why we're trying to do what we're trying to do. So thank you very much.
Okay, and so before we move to Mr. Leone, I would ask the board to approve 2 items on the consent agenda. Administration recommends approval of business items reflected in Schedule D3 and D4.
Is there a motion
Can
to,
I just ask for those 2 items to be separated, please?
okay, for item D3,
I'll make a motion, please.
wait a minute. I think the only one we need for Mr. Leone, though, is D4, isn't it?
No, you need both.
We need both?
Is Tilly making a presentation time?
Yes.
Yes, he is.
So we're going to accept the statements before he makes the presentation?
Yes, you need to make that transfer and accept it before.
It can't be made public before it's accepted, right?
Yeah, is that it? Because it's public or? Yeah, because it's public. It has to be accepted before it's made public.
Okay, so but the financial statements is in the same number 4 motion as the independent auditor's report and the corrective action. And there's 3 items in that, in number 4.
Correct.
So we're gonna be approving them before we've received the presentation on them.
Well, it's an acceptance, and I think that's different from an approval, isn't it? It's just accepting it to have it be presented to the board, and then at some point later, there would have to be a motion for the board to approve them, wouldn't there?
No. The audit committee approved them.
Correct.
And recommended that it be presented to the board. So,
Yes, Madam President, we still have some discrepancy over
Yeah.
the role of the audit committee and the role of the Board of Education with respect to the independent auditor's report. And because there's still some confusion as to whether proper public notification was made, notifying the public about the audit committee and the presentation of the independent auditor's report, that's why I'm going to be voting against it.
Is Mr. Sheehan here?
he left.
No,
I will stand in approval for the budget transfers or for the retiree payout because that's contractual. So that I support, but I just, that's why I'm asking for him to take them separately. And I still think we need some more clarification on this. It's unfortunate that the attorney left already. He wasn't staying for the business meeting?
It's a workshop.
no, it's a
No.
workshop.
So,
But we need to get the documents
Okay.
in the presence of the board so that the board can review them.
We should have been told that as well, because I would have asked this question earlier.
Can he give the presentation in exec and then we make the document public after?
I don't know if that's,
Well,
I honestly don't know.
Why don't we
The
move,
question I was going to ask.
Why don't we move forward with the vote?
attorney.
Why don't we
why
what?
don't we move forward with the vote unless they're, and determine it
The
then?
question I was going to ask the attorney is, out of these three documents, which one of these was presented in executive session at the audit committee meeting? Because now, I can't believe all of them were executive session. So.
We discussed all three, didn't we?
They all were, they all were.
Well, all
The packet of documents that you have that are attached to the agenda for the board, those were all before the audit committee, and Mr. Leone went through and gave highlights of them, and that's what,
you're saying.
that's
But
what
I'm
he's,
saying legally, which ones were permitted to be executive session and which ones were required to be in public session? And that I can't have answered because the attorney left.
do I have a motion to approve board consent agenda item 4, D4?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Pacini made a motion. Is there a second? Well, without a second, we can't move forward.
Acceptance, I don't think we have a presentation either.
That's right.
Okay.
So,
Sorry to waste your time.
so Mr. Leone, thank you for coming.
Okay, just let us know when you want us to come back and we'll have you.
Thank you.
My apologies, Mr. Miller.
No,
So,
understand.
So now we can go back to superintendent's report.
we're not approving the transfer, number
Well, we
three.
can do it in order now.
Yeah, you could do it, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. I have nothing further to report, other than the item 2 on the agenda.
To go around the table, trustee advisory committee reports. Ms. Ancona,
Hasn't met.
nothing?
Yeah, no.
Mr. Trent, Ms. Aruda,
I did half attend the, and I say half attend because I had technical difficulties, much like Mrs. Flynn, the website committee. The little bit that I was able to come into and hear, I was very excited about what they are going to do moving forward. Unfortunately, I was kind of bumped out towards the end, so I'm looking forward to the next meeting.
how many community people responded to say
We
they
had,
had?
I think, 4 or 5. Again, the connection was terrible for me. I know Mrs. Flynn, I think you ended up coming in, I think you came in as I was getting bumped out.
Yeah, we were having technical difficulties.
Yeah, we were. The little bit, I think there was about 4 community members, if I remember
That
correctly.
attended, but I think we had 7 altogether.
7 altogether, yes. And don't quote me on 4, it might have been more than that. I was spending a lot of time just trying to get everything working.
Okay. Mr. Parker, Mr. Pacini,
Nothing from me.
Ms. Felice,
Yes. Thank you, Madam President. This week I've been spending with the New York State School Board Association. We have sharing a vision for education convention. This is the first year due to COVID that it's being held remotely. And so the sessions have been over the past 2 weeks. I have one more session tomorrow, and then on Saturday, we will actually go into the delegates meeting to vote on the legislative agenda for the new New York State budget year. very informative. Much of what we've been talking about already about increasing diversity, reducing institutional and systemic racism are hot topics. I have already begun to type out make notes on the sessions that I've taken and will share with the rest of the board. But I want to thank the board and the district for allowing me the opportunity to attend. I think the education received will benefit us long into the future. Also, one item that was just spoken about today, one of the sessions, a very comprehensive session, was about remote learning and the the advantages and disadvantages of full school, hybrid, and total remote. One of the items that I see is on the agenda about the desk shields. The conventional wisdom with this esteemed group is those shields are not effective, and that the only and best method for reducing and preventing transmission of COVID-19 is social distancing and masks. So just an FYI, unless those desk dividers go from floor to ceiling, they really don't have any added effect and sometimes may give a false sense of security. That's it, and that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I did have something.
And Mr. Trent?
I just wanted to give the board notice that tomorrow I'm attending a Zoom meeting for the Suffolk County Shared Services Initiative. So I'll get back to the board with what that meeting entails.
Okay, good. Thank you for letting us know that.
So, Madam
Mr.
President,
Parker?
we have had several meetings with the Asheville's. Do I do that now or at the end?
I'm having trouble hearing
He
you.
must, now report on his.
With the committee.
On the Asheville meeting?
Right.
Yes, please.
Okay, I don't have a lot, but at the same time, we continue to meet with different leaders and visit sites. We were in Pennsylvania, we were in Brooklyn. It's all quite interesting. Obviously, a lot of the information will be coming forward, but right now I just want to let you know that I am making these visits to the site and that we were granted an extension from the supervisor because it is a lot of work. I just want to make sure that everyone understands this committee has not been formed to make decisions. We only advise the supervisor of some of the things that we see. So, yeah.
So Ms. Parker, the sites that you visited, are they similar in the site that's being proposed to be built in Brookhaven?
It's being proposed, yes.
Can I ask, Mr. Parker, are they in low-income areas?
What is in
Are
Pennsylvania?
the other landfills the Asheville's that you visited, you said, or you were speaking to?
One
Are
in
they-
Pennsylvania
Right.
and one in Babylon.
Is it in a low-income area, or is it
Oh,
in?
no.
You don't know?
The one in Pennsylvania is an industrial area.
Okay.
And the one in Babylon is similar. It's the airport in, what's the name of the airport?
Republic.
Republic.
Very much. Republic, and then there's a cemetery close by. None of these sites that we've seen so far are in residential or close to residential areas.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right, next on the agenda would be the items D1 and D2. And I think that should be held until after our discussion about
Sure.
revision of the reopening plan.
Okay.
But we can take D3, or should we just?
D3?
Should we just move everything back?
Well, D3, which is, it needs to be done and it's not related to D1 or 2 and it's not related to D4. So how about a motion to approve D3? Mr. Trent, and a second by Ms. Ancona. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? Okay, it's unanimously approved. So next, I think you've got, that would be, Dr. Gianna, you want to talk about the personnel agenda?
Sure, if you'd like me to do that.
Or,
The administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in schedules E11 through E16.
okay. Is there a motion to approve items E1? Ms. Ancona's made the motion. A second by Mr. Trent. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimously approved. Next, this is our guide to board meetings. And instead of the usual comment, I just want to make a comment here just so that we all remember, and for anybody who's watching our meeting. Because of how we've had to have partly remote and partly live meetings in a relatively small space right now, we have been asking for members of the public who wish to comment to send their comments to our clerk for receipt by the end of Monday, the Monday before a meeting. So I'm going to ask the clerk if she has any written comments that need to be read at this point.
I have one.
And before you do that, let me say that for people who've just heard me give this little explanation, we are aware of email that has been sent to the superintendent and to members of the board, and they've been forwarded and copied to all of us. So those will be in mind of the board members and the superintendent when we next get to our review of our reopening plan. So Mrs. Flynn, if you could read the comment.
Okay, this is from Benjamin Kana, a parent. As I see the board's meetings through YouTube, I am listening to all the concerns of all parents, and I see parents are focused on returning to school 5 days a week. But unfortunately, we need to see reality is that we are currently in a pandemic, and some parents are scared to send their children to school and choose to do full remote learning. We do need to focus more on full remote learning as well as the hybrid. The committee is focusing on putting our children back to school 5 days a week, but there are parents who still choose to do full remote learning, and I've seen the struggles and are hoping to have more focus on full remote learners as well. We have children who are struggling, who are in special education and in regular education, who need that extra help and are not getting it. Let's not focus on bringing the children all back to school, but let's focus also on students who are doing full remote learning as well. You are focused on hybrid, let's focus on all aspects of learning. What I would like to see is how we can fix remote learning. How can we accommodate the teachers to help our students get a better education over the Chromebooks? How can we put teachers to dedicate themselves not just to the students in the class, but the students on Google Meet? I know the board has considered that there are parents who work. There are parents who are juggling between school and jobs, but have we also considered how the children are juggling to keep up with their assignments? I believe that the board should consider, and the superintendent as well, how students are doing with remote learning instead of doing surveys and waiting for the results. These surveys are a waste of time. Why I feel that way is because you have to wait to see the survey's results and then bring it to the board. I believe they can be different methods to do the surveys. Teachers can ask the students their inputs and see how it can better their education. What changes do the students want to make? I am always told that children are our future, so let their voices be heard in the process. Let them have an input in the committee and in their education. I would also like to say that attendance for remote learners are horrible. There should be a way that attendance should be conducted, and at the moment, the middle school attendance, it's not accurate. Remote learners students' grades are in an all-time low. Let's try to see if we can fix this. In conclusion, I would like to add that we are looking at another second wave of COVID-19, and we do need to be prepared for all children to do full remote learning when the time arises. Let's prepare for the future and not stay stuck in the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're down to G2, and Dr. Gianni, that would be your comments.
Okay, items for discussion?
Yes, items for discussion,
Okay.
G2.
Okay, next item for discussion is our reopening of our schools, specifically a reopening phase-in plan to bring more students back to school for in-person teaching and learning. As I previously indicated, a major obstacle in bringing all students back is the 6-foot social distancing guideline. New York State guidance permits reducing the 6-foot guideline when barriers are used. However, that is not the protocol we used when developing our reopening plan. And to do so, we would need to go inside the 6-foot mark. As promised, now that students and staff have become more comfortable social distancing at school, administration examined how we may bring groups of students in more frequently for in-person instruction. We determined that the only way to bring additional students back equitably district-wide is to go inside the 6-foot social distancing mark using desk barriers. We have consulted our building reopening committees, we have met with the faculty, and we have surveyed faculty and our families, and our feedback received was wide-ranging. Using the information we received for the board's consideration, the administration developed a plan to phase in the return of all students by grade level to school for full-time instruction for 4 or 5 days per week. The phase-in would occur in 2-week intervals beginning Monday, November 16th. The plan also improves learning opportunities for our remote learners, first by requiring live learning connections with the teacher, and later assigning remote teachers for remote learners. The phase-in plan would of course be contingent upon executive orders, state or local rules, and COVID-19 infection rates, and is as follows. The draft plan reflects a schedule of bringing students back to school pre-K at 5 days and grades K to 12 at 4 days inside the social distancing mark for in-person instruction. The phase-in plan first requires live streaming, thereby increasing teacher-student contact time when students are learning from home. It then begins a phase-in schedule to bring groups of students back to school by grade level in 2-week increments. This will allow for a gradual increase of density in our schools and allow for the monitoring of any spikes in the school and the community. Also beginning in phase 3, dedicated remote teachers would be assigned to our elementary remote learners in K to 5 to provide live synchronous teaching on Monday and Tuesday and Thursday and Friday. That first phase, November 16th, would include all pre-K to return to 5 days, grades K, 1, 4, 6, and 12, 4 days, and remote teachers for our remote learners, K to 5. Remote learners, K to 5, will remain assigned to the classroom or roster teacher. Remote teachers will collaborate with classroom teachers on remote Wednesdays, and classroom teachers will check in with their remote learners on remote Wednesdays. We will first assign current reading and math teachers to fill these remote positions and plan to work with the teachers union to hire remote teachers so reading and math support can resume. Some of the challenges we anticipate are an increase of students sent home with symptoms of COVID, flu, or allergies. As a result, we would discontinue building-wide notices when this occurs and make phone calls to the class instead of letters. We would continue building-wide notices of anyone testing positive for COVID. Social distancing may not be possible when using bus transportation. Masks will be continued to be required. Mask breaks would continue in the classroom, with teachers permitting mask breaks every other row, so students are 6 feet apart when taking a mask break. There will be no change in hall passing at the secondary level. Students have been moving along well to their next class, and we do not anticipate this to be problematic, particularly since lockers are still not assigned and there's no reason to stop and congregate in the hall. At the secondary level, the 6-foot social distance mark will be maintained within the cafeteria. At the elementary level, students will continue to eat in their classrooms at their desks, but now behind desk barriers. Families of remote learners will need to commit to remain on remote learning for the entire semester. With more students in school, it would be extremely difficult for both teachers and administration to allow students to switch between these learning models. We will not be able to continue the hybrid model of 2 days in person and 3 days remote once we transition to 4 days, because that would be too disruptive for our teachers and their planning. And with the increase in density, contact tracing will be more of a challenge. And with more students at school, there would certainly be a possibility that we will have school closure and more students and staff needing to quarantine as a result of the increase in density in our schools. I offer this phase-in plan for the board's consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'm gonna go around.
Can I just have him reread something? I just missed what he read.
Actually, that's what I'm going to ask too.
Okay,
Which part?
With the walls, I didn't
Yeah,
understand the passing
the
of the
whole,
walls.
my question was the secondary level, the cafe setting, in the cafeteria. I missed if you said, is it still gonna be 6 feet?
Yes.
And can you just reiterate what you said for?
The halls, we would continue to, no change in the halls. Students have been moving along well, and we don't anticipate you to make any changes.
So all the kids back, crowded in a hallway, changing classes, that's not a problem?
Well, as I said, we're going to phase students in. So at the high school, there'll be one additional grade coming in at first. And as that continues, we'll monitor it. Right now, it's not an issue. With one grade level back, we don't anticipate it an issue. If the second grade level comes back and there is an issue, maybe we would need to do some staggering. But at this point, we don't anticipate any issues.
And then, are you recommending this? Is this your plan to recommend? Because usually you say, I recommend to the board this plan.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
This is my recommendation for the boards to consider.
okay. I'll start with Ms. Garuda.
Couple of questions. You spoke about breaking the 6-foot barrier, which we're aware that we would have to do. What exactly does that mean in terms of distance? So are we talking 5 feet? Are we talking 4 feet, 2 feet?
We're talking more like 3 feet. And
3 feet.
And in some cases, it could be just under 3 feet.
Okay, so that's fairly close. That's, then there is a big difference that the community does need to be aware of. What about music classes, especially at the secondary level?
I'm sorry, which class?
Music classes.
Music.
Chorus specifically, and things that require a 12-foot distance.
They would still continue to operate as they are. They would need to go into larger spaces or outdoors to be able to do that.
Okay, so larger spaces. Right now, I believe they're working out of the auditorium at the middle school level, and I believe even at the high school level. Obviously, outdoors is going to be almost impossible. So ultimately, we're looking at chorus classes not being able to perform.
Well, I don't know if that's accurate. I think the auditorium may be big enough, but.
But we don't know yet.
No, I think it did not come up as a concern when discussing with administration, so I don't anticipate it.
Well, I think just in general, I think there's going to be a lot of questions. It's just like when we started with the reopening. As we start to talk about this, we've only had less than 2 weeks to really think about it. Obviously, certain things are going to come up, just like we started with our plan in the summer. For our pre-K, would our CBO be following the same protocols?
Yes.
And for elementary eating in the classroom, we talked about you spoke about mask breaks being every other row. They eat breakfast and they eat lunch within the classroom. That means all masks would be off for that period of time.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Parker?
You took most of my questions, but the last comment, the last comment is that, it's difficult for me to wrap my arms around this because on the one hand, they're talking about second wave is around the corner. So I don't know if it makes a lot of sense to consider putting the kids back in school full-time, knowing that basically, we don't know, but assuming that the second wave would come, we'd have to go back to either closing the schools or a hybrid again. So, and I know no one can tell us when a second wave would be coming, so it's just something that I'm thinking about, and it concerns me. I don't know what I would do if I had school-age children. I understand parents do. Some need to work, want to work. Some just need freedom from the kids. And parents working at home with the kids running around. It's difficult, and I understand all of those issues. But I did want to just make sure that I mentioned the fact that the second wave is getting near. As you know, I'm on the board at the hospital there, and we are prepared for it. So, just so you know.
So you're pointing out a concern of disruption in the programming because of the possibility of having to pull back. Okay.
But what kind of, to that point, what kind of damage would it cause if we were in phase 5 and then have to pull back fully remote? Would that be more harmful than being what we're doing now until the time, phase 5's time period, December 14th?
What do you mean by harmful?
So when it comes to the impact on our students, with having them in school 4 days and then having them, going back to what they were doing before, would that be more of a disruption when it comes to teachers' work and things like that?
Well, I think it would certainly be a disruption, but it would also depend upon when that occurs, right? Remember, phase 5, phase 5 is middle of December, right? So that would only happen if the numbers were down, right? So if there were any spikes, that we wouldn't go to phase 5. In fact, if there was any spikes before the first phase, we wouldn't go to the first phase under that, or any executive orders. But as we move along in the phases, and that's why this is actually designed by some kids first, right? We looked at the youngest, the Ks and 1s and the pre-Ks, who we know are struggling terribly with the technology and learning. So we looked at those first, and then we looked at the youngest kids in Frank P. and only brought in half the school. And same thing at the middle school, the 6th grade, and only brought in 1 grade, and then bringing 1 grade in the high school. And we felt it was the seniors that needed to come in there because it was their last year of school. So we weren't looking to increase total density like that. And we would make those adjustments and see how it goes as we move along. If there were issues, you would hear them from me as well as the community as well. But it's hard to say. Listen, if and when we go total remote, it will be a challenge. We know that from March. We know that from right now it's a challenge. And that's one of the reasons why, part of this record, we've already instituted the live instruction piece. But this phase-in plan also puts in the remote teachers to support the elementary level, where we know the kids and faculty are struggling the most with remote teaching and learning.
Just to clarify one thing, even with bringing back only 1 grade level, it still would require reducing the 6-foot distance.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So basically, in order to comply with the 6-foot distance, we have as many kids as we can accommodate under the present system.
In the classroom, yes. as I mentioned last week, or a couple of weeks ago, we have pockets of space in each of the buildings, but we don't have enough space to accommodate, a grade level or a group. I'll give you an example, and I think I used this example last time we met. Kramer has absolutely no space. I mean, their classes are high, and it's a tiny building. So you're not doing anything there unless you go inside the 6 feet. Other buildings have pockets of space places that we can do things, but we'd have to increase staff also. So this plan, looking at it by grade level, we felt, is most equitable because it's a plan addressing the youngest kids first, except for the seniors, and to move gradually in. And if you notice, the phase-in has 2-week increments, similar to quarantine and increments that the state guidelines suggest. So we could look at how it's going as we move along and whether or not we want to, bail out of the next phase. I don't know if I answered anything.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Ruda?
I'm sorry, just a couple of quick things. What would we deem as a spike, so to speak?
Well, the metric, right? I think it's 5%.
So we would look at a 5%?
Whatever the guidelines are from the state of New York,
Okay.
we would look at.
Now, with this current plan, a couple of things. One, we say elementary would be remote teachers K to 5. 6th grade technically is elementary. And I do think that if we were to look into this, I do think that the 6th grade, because they are clustered, could benefit. And 6th grade's always kind of been.
Yeah, it's kind of, where is it?
It's always been that,
It's
and
elementary
and as
school
you
and
know,
secondary
it's,
building.
yeah.
Mr.
So I
White
always-
mentioned that to me earlier today, and I told him that's something we can certainly
Yeah,
consider.
only because you know that I've always kind of been the advocate for 6th grade, because I feel like it's the forgotten child. Now, with the way that this is being presented with the various grades and the various buildings, both at elementary and at secondary, we may see that it's working at the elementary level, but maybe not at secondary. There's so many question marks at this time right now. It becomes where we may have success in pre-K and kindergarten, but then we may find at the high school that having everyone return may not be successful. What do we do then? Scrap this and then start from?
You're right. You in your earlier comments, you said, we went into this thing, not knowing everything, but learning along the way.
Right.
And I think the same thing would be true with this. We may find it's not working at the high school or the middle school, and we'll need to reevaluate and readjust as we did in the current plan.
Yeah, my only concern was that we have reevaluated and readjusted for the most part prior to the students coming in. Because we did have so much time before to really sit and meet and have a meeting of the mind, so to speak, so that we were all able to, whether it be the committees, to be able to give input, to turn around and say, okay, temperature taken or mask, so that we had different eyes on it. It's not as laid out as we did for the reopening. So I feel like I need to vocalize that, and I understand why it's not. It's only been 2 weeks, and I appreciate what you've put into this right now. But there's still so many question marks.
There's a lot of questions. Listen, I know the board saw all the feedback, right? And then, as I mentioned earlier, the feedback was wide ranging, right?
Absolutely.
But in this plan, there's pieces of everyone's feedback. And most importantly, I continue. Safety is certainly number one for me, and I think the board knows that. But we're also a learning organization, and our kids, particularly at the elementary level right now, are getting cheated. We're not doing the job we need to do, and I really think those little ones need to come back.
So I agree that it's not working the way it is, but I also agree when something's not working, you perfect it before you do a complete 180. So the live teaching and the live streaming, so we heard from the parents, their kids are bored, they're not in front of the computer all day. Now that the teacher's gonna be in front of them all day, before we start risking people's lives, why don't we give that a chance and see how good that goes? Because what's gonna happen is if there's gonna be more disruption when we have to close a school down, a grade down, a class down, the district down, whatever it is, then the parents have already gone back to work. They've already made other arrangements for their kids. They lost their babysitters. That's gonna be more disruptive to the parents. If we see that the live streaming is working and the elementary teachers are implementing that, and the kids are busy and the parents don't have to struggle to teach them and to do, whatever it is that they're doing, and the kids aren't outside playing and they're in front of the computer. Not that I love the computer. I know this is the best case of a worst case scenario, but it's just a complete 180 when now it's not just the kids, and I understand the need to go back. I want my son to go back. I want all the kids to go back. But the thing is that, like Cheryl said, the barriers don't work. The doctors told me that. Unless they're floor to ceiling, the barriers don't do anything. The masks and the distancings are what makes the difference. 6 feet isn't even enough, but that's a reasonable number to ask from people. So that's why they went with the 6 feet. So now we're gonna make them come closer. Then you have, there are other districts that are opening, and I understand that, but you have neighboring districts who are opening. They do all their lunch periods, 8th period, they have 8 periods. They do it all late in the day. They do early release before 8th period starts, so there's nobody who doesn't need to be there is not there. That way you also don't have to worry about the masks. Their cafeterias are open, they're doing 3 feet distancing. They don't give mask breaks. If a kid needs a mask break, they can take it, and I've talked to several teachers in those neighboring districts, and most of the kids don't even take it. But it's respectful, they take it off for a few minutes, breathe, put it back on. So you're talking about now there's no mask breaks when people were already upset about the masks. So you have things that aren't in here that other schools are doing to implement that. Like I said, the early release is a big thing. If the kid, you're putting the teachers at risk too, even though the elementary kids are at the least, affected by this disease. The teachers are gonna be in a classroom with, let's just say, 18 kids. Let's just say, because we'll have some remote kids. Now you have them all eating in a classroom with the teacher being there on top of them. They're little kids, they need help opening stuff, there's gonna be contact, and then you're gonna have them closed. And that's my concern, is that we're just gonna do all this and have to come back. Then you have the holidays coming. That's when the family gatherings are coming, that's when they predict the second wave. I think most people are upset because we never had other phases in our plan. And it is good to talk about other phases, but I don't think we should be talking about this until 2 weeks after we return. I think we should talk about it now and plan for phase 1 to start 2 weeks after our winter break. And that gives the 14 days from New Year's. Then you have phase 1 coming back. We could do it all within the 2-week intervals. Everybody would be back by mid-February. And then we're getting out of flu season. We're getting out of the gathering period. And it's just more thoughtful. People have time to plan, and we have time to plan and really perfect everything. But that's my opinion.
I was trying to go around the table because I would have Mr. Pacini and then Ms. Felice and Mr. Trent and then I'm last.
So, I think everybody knows where I stand on this issue, and I think, first of all, with the plan itself, I have a concern that it starts too late. The fact that we're proposing phase 5 of 8, 10, and 11, grades 8, 10, and 11 to come back a week before we break for winter break. Seems a little silly that, I understand the concept of 2 weeks, but we're waiting 2 weeks to even start it, if it even gets approved, which I'm not sure will happen tonight. So I think we're taking too long to get the kids back. And I think if everybody talks about the second wave, it might come, it might not. And if it does, we're gonna shut down anyway. So why would we not try to bring kids back? Because the one theme that I think we're not talking about enough is that nobody can stand here and say hybrid is working. Kids are learning and this is good for kids. There's not a parent, there's not a teacher, I don't think there's a board member that can say this is working great.
It's working for my children. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
well, okay,
I'm
great.
sorry.
I'm
It's
glad you
working
think, listen,
wonderfully
okay,
for my
so then I
children,
stand
and
corrected on that,
I'm
okay?
sorry,
Okay, that's fine, you said
yeah.
your point, I'm gonna finish
Just to
speaking.
say, I've had
But-
parents tell me that it's worked well for their children
Okay,
as well.
then I stand corrected on that point. I can tell you, I'm the only one in the room with elementary age kids, it doesn't work. I don't want my kids doing virtual live instruction in front of a computer all day. Neither do the 68% of parents that responded to our survey saying they want their students, their children back in school. And I don't see how we can ignore 68% of those surveyed, which I thought was, the number of people surveyed and responded was pretty remarkable as far as surveys go. I don't think we've ever seen a survey that had that many responses. We're also not talking about the 2 reports that came out this week that so far data shows that the virus is not being spread in schools. Kids can get it, but there's no data anywhere in the world that says kids in school, masks, no masks, 6 feet, no 6 feet, barriers, no barriers, that it's not being spread, nor is it being spread by their caregivers. It's not to say that people aren't going to get it, they are. This virus is here forever, just like the flu is here forever, okay? So what we're doing, and we heard from a few dozen parents this week talking about the negative impacts on their children. I will say right now, I'm a parent who has less concern over COVID than I do about my children's mental health, okay? And sitting them in front of a computer for 6 hours a day to have their classes and everything else, it doesn't make sense to me as that being a solution. Furthermore, every time we've seen, well, I shouldn't say every time, most of the situations where we've seen buildings get shut down wasn't because the virus was transmitted in the building, it was outside activities. Those aren't going away, right? We had the issue, Sachem North High School closed for 2 weeks because of Sweet 16 at the Miller Place Inn that was all over the news. There's nothing that we can do in protocols that's gonna change that, whether they're here full-time or not. I mean, you know, nobody talks about, there are so many other little things, and some of them are little and some of them aren't. There's a sedentary pandemic in this world that nobody talks about. Kids aren't active and they're less active now. And I should say as a disclaimer to the teachers that are listening and hearing what we're saying here, none of this is their fault, right? But kids, you know, if it's raining out, kids are watching movies in gym class, okay? Because we can't have gym indoors yet. Okay, my son at the high school, he's the only person in gym class. I mean, some of these things are so detrimental to a kid's, you know, mental health and well-being, and the fact that they're not moving. There's few organized sports, only travel sports to those who are affluent enough to afford it. So we're forgetting about those who are socioeconomically challenged not being able to get out and move. That's a problem I have. Okay, and you know, this one might be a little silly, but my daughter's back was hurting her, and I was curious as to why. So I weighed her backpack, because these elementary age kids are coming home with a Chromebook and all their textbooks in case we get shut down, or so they have them on their remote days. Okay, it's 14.5 pounds. My daughter's 80 pounds, that's 17% of her body weight. Okay, that would be me carrying a 45-pound backpack to work every day. So these are little things that go into everything that these kids are experiencing that's negative. I mean, is anybody happy looking at our social, I mean, well, I'll save that comment for later. I ask this board and I implore this board to listen to the stories that the parents have told us in their notes to us and understand if the parents are saying, I believe it's safe for my children, who are we to say it's not? We have an option for those who have issues. There is 100% remote option. There's nothing available to these parents who are, I mean, listen, it happens today, like Wednesdays, there's virtually no school. Okay? My children, my elementary age children are done with school after an hour and a half. And now it's screen time, or it's raining today. Okay? Daughter blew a gasket because the Roblox server went down for about 10 minutes today. I mean, this isn't healthy. This isn't good for kids. Kids are gaining weight, they're losing confidence in themselves. Their social emotional well-being, which we talk about in this room a lot, is just being, you know, I feel like it's being discounted, and I don't want to believe that that's the case. But it is, and we have the ability, and everybody in this room has the ability to do something about it. Okay?
I'm sorry, I just want to piggyback off of what Mr. Pacini said, and I'll be quick. many of the districts that are being shut down, we're seeing them being shut down at the secondary level, and that's typically, in many cases, some from social gatherings outside, but many times it is from a teacher contracting the virus, and unfortunately, when that happens, then contact tracing becomes extreme. So that's where we're seeing a lot of the shutdown coming from, not necessarily saying the teacher contracted the disease outside, they could have had an asymptomatic student in their class. So that's a catch-22 on that. I hear what you're saying when it comes to the social and emotional well-being, and I'm definitely would like to see our children come back. For me personally, right now, I need a well-thought-out plan that is very specific as to how we will implement this for the safety, not only the physical safety, but the emotional and mental safety of our children and our staff. The fact that we are lumping all grades together, I'm a little nervous about that. And I apologize for whoever I cut, I just wanted to kind of go back.
Yeah, I did. I wanted a point I wanted to finish, but I guess the part of it that I guess troubles me and why this is such a difficult decision for some is the fact that we're not breaking any of the state guidelines. Okay? Barriers and masks within inside of 6 feet is in the state's guidance. We heard from a parent that was on the committee that's also, that formulated those guidelines, urging us to bring our kids back. So, it's.
Elementary, he said elementary.
Well, whatever, regardless. But you know what? I have a hard time sitting here and saying one kid's education is more important than another's. Because my other problem with this is the fact that, again, phase 5, bringing back 8, 10, and 11 on December 14th, I can make an argument that the 11th grade is more important than anybody. This is a make or break year for kids trying to get in college. So, it's disappointing to me to be having this conversation so late to begin with, and then to hear all this might happen and that might happen. Well, I can tell you that what will happen is our kids' emotional well-being will continue to suffer, especially going into winter, right? What are we gonna do when kids can't, like I said last week, you drive down the village on a Wednesday and it's packed with secondary students, right? Mostly the middle school kids, because that's the age that hangs out in the village, right? What are they gonna do when it's too cold? Now these kids are gonna be on Xbox and texting and Snapchat and social
Well,
media.
it's a parent's responsibility.
Well, sure it is, but when
It's
parents,
not-
but when
my
a
kids
parent,
are home
but you know
on
what?
Wednesday
But when
doing
a
their
parent,
work.
it's easy to say that, but when a parent has to work,
I work on Wednesdays.
great, I understood.
And you know what? I have my
Great.
Ring app, and if
Listen,
my
I'm not
children
gonna sit here and
step foot
start,
out
listen,
that
I'm not gonna
door-
sit here and start judging parents,
Right.
okay?
I'm not
At the end of the
judging
day,
parents either, but you're
I
throwing
get
the
it,
village.
but this is what's
And
got,
you're
this is.
making it a school issue.
I'm
when
not saying the
saying-
village is a school issue. I'm telling you what the natural progression is. When kids aren't busy, they're gonna find something to be busy with. And right now, it's innocent enough as hanging out at the deli or the pizza place in the village, okay? It could get worse. It's a problem. I learned a long time ago, I had the pleasure to meet somebody who was part of a Nobel Prize winning group, right? It's another long story for another day. But there's 3 things to a functioning society: clean water, roads, and schools. Kids need to be in school. And I understand what a crazy time it is, and there's a pandemic and everything else. But to sit here and be one of the very small percentages of schools that doesn't have a planned reopening date to bring kids back, I think I read today every single district in Brookhaven town has a certain portion of their students back full-time. And yet, we have a plan that finishes sometime in December. I mean,
We don't have anything written down to say this is what it's going to look like. I don't think anybody sitting here is saying that we don't want to bring the children back. What we're saying is we need details. We need something to say, this is what do we need?
Mr. Rhoda, the current plan is not changing. So all the protocols and procedures that were already agreed upon are gonna remain in effect. The only differences are the things that I mentioned to you just a little while ago.
I mean, there's a big difference between 6 feet and 3 feet.
Yes.
Passing time, and as I've stated before, I definitely see elementary and secondary as 2 separate entities. We know at the secondary level, if there is a case, the contact tracing at a secondary level becomes almost nearly impossible. When we're talking about something as silly as, we praised at our last meeting the music program that we have here and the arts that we have here. At the secondary level, I will tell you, music will probably be non-existent, chorus will probably be non-existent. I do not believe that we can fit that many children into an auditorium successfully being able to sing or do the things that they're doing. So these are the types of things, those questions that I'm saying that I really think we need to pan out. As we talked about the holidays coming up, we already are seeing the spikes happening. We're seeing schools closing all over the place. And it's not that I don't want to bring back the children, of course I do. I just feel as though we are shotgunning this in 2 weeks without having the information that we need. That's my 2 cents.
Just to play off the social emotional well-being, if we shut down and we're in a shutdown like we were in March, where I saw my son change overnight, and that was more detrimental than the way it is now with a hybrid plan, and we have sports, we've made them available. I have no problem making them available for the middle school right now with the extra help. There's no reason why we even have to wait 2 weeks for that. We could vote on that tonight, and I'm sure everybody in this room would agree that we could do that. There would be no reason not to, since it did work okay with the high school. It's been 2 weeks, they've done it, they're doing good. Then you also have, you let everybody back in, and now sports could be in jeopardy again, because now you're not having the cohorts and you're gonna have everybody on the field. And that's gonna be an issue, and the kids are enjoying that. They're loving these sports. They're going from football, going home to eat, and going to lacrosse. They're having fun, and even though they're enjoying it to the point where they realize they had it all, it was taken away from them, and now they're so grateful for whatever they have back. And I'm not saying that, like I said, I want my kid in school. It's not about that. It's just gonna be more detrimental if we go back on lockdown and we can't see each other again, that we're gonna have to be back on Zoom meetings. The social emotional well-being of a kid is more important to me than their education. Their safety is more important than their education. That's why I got on this board, because of their safety. That is what I wanted to make sure that happened with these kids. But putting them in this situation can end up backfiring, and that's my problem. And the teachers and the staff too, even though the kids are at less risk, which high school kids are at the same risk as adults, but even though the little kids are, they can still carry it, the teachers can still get it, the schools can still shut down. And like Ms. Maruda said, it does need to be thought out. It doesn't need to be rushed. If we rush it, that's where we're gonna make mistakes. If we think it out, and another thing that the neighboring school did have too was the staggered bell times. They let out, every hallway had a different minute to get let out, so that way they weren't all in the same hallway. Even though you're gonna break the distancing in a hallway, that's it. Once they're all back, there's not even a foot next to another kid. There really isn't.
We keep talking about something.
I just want to make a comment, because all of these things you're talking about, the details are all in the current plan. So as we bring more kids back, in the plan it says that we may stagger those dismissals. We may stagger release from classes. Those are things that you have to get in to see how it works. Do I anticipate that happening? Not right away, certainly not with one grade level. But as we move up and more grade levels come in, we may need to do that, and the plan addresses it. So the details you're talking about, they're already in the plan. It was well thought out.
So,
I understand this in the
but
summer.
you know what, I get your point, but my problem is, we're still, there's guidelines put in place by the medical professionals, right? Passing in the hall seems to be taking up more time than I think it should, because, close contact is, more than 10 minutes without a mask. So if a kid passes another kid in the hallway, pass time is 2 minutes at most, right? So, it's like we're grasping at straws to delay this process, and I'm struggling with that. And we don't have sports back, and I get your point, but you know what? We have, a little bit. We don't have it back. And, I think you mentioned your son plays lacrosse. Okay, well, the lacrosse kids have, practice Monday, Tuesday, in the Monday, Tuesday cohort, but the Thursday, Friday only have Thursday. So like there's different, okay, so fine, because, yeah, great, so it changed, right? Which,
They each have one, but he does have
yeah, because people
football.
complained, and I'm just saying, that's not sports back. That's, all right, we're letting kids practice and everything else, but yet the soccer fields, the baseball fields, and the lacrosse fields are full on weekends, okay? I know somebody who took a bus full of kids to New Jersey to play basketball this weekend. Okay? So, I mean, these things are happening. If a second wave does come, it's not going to be at the fault of schools. It's going to happen, it's going to happen. And nobody's going to stop it, right? But nobody knows it's going to happen. I mean, the height of this thing was in the springtime. So, you know, to say that this might happen and this might happen while kids continue to suffer, I think is irresponsible. So and I'll just be, like, I don't want to, I'm sitting here debating the science and what may happen, what may not, is a waste of time. As far as I'm concerned, this plan that the superintendent has presented to us is an extension of the plan that was already put together, that had all the details thought out. In my opinion, this is too late. I think kids should be in sooner than this. I think we should start the week of the 9th. And I certainly don't think we should be bringing kids back as late as the 14th. But that's my opinion. I'd live with it just to get the kids back. But, and there's nothing here that's breaking a single guideline from New York State Department of Health, CDC, the Reimagine Committee that the governor put together on opening schools. I don't see anything in here that's breaking any of those guidelines. So for us to sit here and take a guess at what may or may not happen and second guess the experts that put together those guidelines, I think it's foolish, and I think it's a waste of time, and I think it's a disservice to our students and our families of our district. Okay, we've heard from them countlessly. And again, we're still not talking about 68% of parents surveyed out of the 11 or 1,200, okay, said they want their kids back. And they should be back, and they're okay with that. Who are we to say that that we should determine for them what's safest for their own child?
I was going to go to Ms. Felice next.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
She's looking at the computer.
I have a number of questions. I hope I've been given the time that many of you just availed. And because all of our questions are important. And we all see this from various perspectives. And that's why there's 7 of us. So first, I just want to say that if I were a parent watching this meeting, I would have very little confidence in what we're doing. And here's why. The Board of Education was given 8 separate reports, one as soon as this afternoon, to review. There was no summary provided of all those reports. Every report was written on a different platform. The chart that was given to us was in a different format. Some were pie charts, some were bar graphs, some were Excel sheets, some were narratives. And the most egregious one was the 93-page document we got of every single individual parent comment for baby. How are we ever going to digest that kind of information to make a decision here? And I don't want to minimize the families that want to go back full-time, the families that still want to be remote, and the families that still want to stay hybrid. I think our reopening plan needed to give us a timeframe of when we were going to look at reopening. And this way we knew when we had to reevaluate and we would be on time schedule. I do agree with 2 of the trustees who said it's just too rushed. I feel it's too rushed. We talked about data a lot. Several years ago, we put an assistant principal in the administration office for the purpose of data, because we were going to improve our test scores with reevaluating our data. We know that we can only improve on what we can measure, and we can only know in what we measure is how we manage. And I don't think we've got any of that consistent here in the reports that we looked at. I have many other questions. And I still want to reinforce that masks and social distancing is still the conventional wisdom that's out there as the effective method of controlling the transmitting of the disease. The reopening committee. The reopening committee was consulted throughout the summer. Were they consulted in any way on this reopening plan?
Yes, you have the results of that in your documents.
And that was probably the most vague document that we got.
Excuse me, Ms. Felice, can I just clarify there? is that the document that basically had bullet points?
Yes, I believe
Now,
it
hold
did.
on, let me go back to it. I'm looking at
What
my-
was the title of that?
Teacher feedback?
It was called teacher
Teacher
feedback.
feedback. I
Yes.
believe that's titled teacher feedback.
So, did we have reopening committees in every school?
Yes.
Okay. Again, it's very, to me, vague. Okay. We've already established, I think, that barriers don't work, but if we are going to be ordering these barriers, who's going to be cleaning them? And how are they going to be cleaned? Because that is another level of transmission, there. We talked about mask breaks. I think you referred to mask breaks in the classroom of every other row. Two things have to be answered with that. And also, the remote learning session that I was on today with the NISBA, the New York State School Board Association, did say many schools reported their concern about compliance measures for students with masks, and that those worries are really at an all-time low. That children and students are being very compliant with the masks. And if they need a mask break, they take it. They no longer have to have a designated mask break time. So how are we going to address the mask break? And then also, if we're increasing more students in the classroom and reducing social distancing, how does that affect when they have lunch? If we're still maintaining lunch in the classroom, could that be answered?
Okay, so I think I responded to those when I initially opened up with regard to mask breaks. The mask breaks would still be
And
happening.
lunch,
Pardon me?
and with lunch, if we're going to be increasing more students, and are the students still going to be having lunch in the classroom?
Yes, they are, and they are
Okay.
going to eat behind the barrier.
So,
At certain parts.
So to clarify, how many students would there be in first or fourth grade class at phase 4? Or phase 3, I mean?
At phase
When they're all
3.
back, in
Yeah, so
first grade.
it would depend. Your
So I'm trying to
class
get a visual.
sizes range anywhere from 18 to 24 with remotes in.
Okay.
So it depends upon how many children are taking remote. So you won't see a regular class size because I think we have some 38 youngsters, all remote.
38%.
38%, hey, I'm sorry, 38% of the youngsters are taking remote. And that's pretty much spread across the grade levels.
So you can have around 18 first graders in the class with no mask on while they're having lunch and snack and breakfast.
I think 18 is not a number that would occur, but yes, it's possible.
So now what constitutes the close exposure guideline? Is it the 10 minutes with no mask on? What is the close exposure?
Well, it's 10, it would be 10 cumulative minutes without a mask or a barrier.
Or Barrett?
Or a barrier, yeah.
Could you just clarify where it says that it's a mask or barrier?
It's in New York State guidance. I don't have, it's not in our plan, but it's in guidance.
And they've since updated that to 3.
Okay, so I can read you the most recent guidance.
Okay.
Pursuant to the New York State DOH guidance, schools must ensure that appropriate social distancing, i.e. 6 feet / barriers, is maintained between individuals on school facilities, on school grounds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's a interpretation of the guidance. The guidance itself is more clear.
May I finish, Madam Chair, or are you finished?
Yes, I think that clarified. Go ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned about remote, in one of the documents, it referred to as the remote-only teachers. How committed are we to remote-only teachers, and do we have enough on staff to accommodate separating remote teachers from classroom teachers.
In grades K to 5, we do.
8 to 5, good. You also mentioned spikes in the numbers would of course cause a rollback. I think the reason our district has not had to close a school like some of our surrounding districts have had to so far is because we've been so diligent about masks and about social distancing and about keeping the numbers low. We have an incident this week where we do have one classroom that has to be quarantined now. It's the first time we've experienced it. And that happened on the cusp of us wanting to go back to full reopening. Also, it was mentioned that the peak of this outbreak was in the spring. That was only the first peak. Then there was a second peak in the summer, and there's a third peak right now. And the numbers now, not in New York State, but the numbers now nationwide are higher than they were back in the spring. And I think that's something we have to be concerned about, because there are many out there who don't believe that this threat is real. And I happen to be one of them who believes it is. And so that's why I'm on remote today. And I apologize to the residents that I am. I'm going for surgery in 2 weeks, and the doctor have asked that I self-quarantine so that I don't risk getting the disease before surgery. That's why I'm here, and I appreciate that our state still allows the board the option to come remotely. I was a big believer that the board should be meeting in person with masks, with social distancing, and I was an advocate for that. This is the only reason why I'm remote today. Because if we're going to be asking our teachers and our students to do that, I think the board should do the same. I also think the board should start, if we're going to start talking about a rollout of reopening to full time. We haven't allowed the public into our meetings since the outbreak. And we have rooms in our buildings that would allow us for enough social distancing. And so, in one hand, we're talking about the school reopening, and on the other hand, we're keeping the public out of the process. So, the other issue I have with the limited report we got about the teacher feedback, reopening committee feedback. Can the board be provided with minutes from those reopening committees? I think we have to confirm that these meetings are happening, when they're happening, who's at them, because we have no idea who was at these meetings. We just have to believe on good faith that the Bellport High School had a meeting on Monday the 19th, and every other school also had it on the 19th, but we have no idea who was there. We don't know who led the meeting. We don't know what absolutely was discussed or not. And I think that's something that, with decisions like these, we should be made privy to. And I will close with, but I will reserve an opportunity to speak again if something comes up. 2 things. With respect to the outbreak, I think the entire district, with respect to the quarantine, I think the entire district should be made aware of that quarantine. I was in the drugstore this weekend, and residents who see me ask how we're doing at the schools. People want to know. The community wants to know. And I think it would be wise of us to just be honest and say what we have going on in there. I don't think it would cause an alarm, but I just think that in this particular case, and I'm grateful that the parents at the middle school were notified, but they were notified before the Board of Education was. And not until an email went to the superintendent this morning asking, did this happen? When did it happen? And why don't we know about it? Did we get a letter that confirmed it did happen? So for me, I need to be assured that every person who should be involved and should be consulted is being consulted, and that information is coming back to us so that we can make an educated decision Above all, I appreciate that the superintendent speaks about safety. I know the teachers are concerned about safety, and we are all equally concerned about safety. And I believe we've done as well as we have because we've been overly cautious with our safety. And I think we have to take baby steps. One of the quotes that was made today in the class that I attended was about, and I'm just going to ask you to bear with me for a quick minute as I look to the highlights. But what was said was, when it came to protocol about remote learning, and getting support from parents and for students, go slow to go fast. Don't go too fast that you have to regress rapidly. And that's what I see happening here, and I hope we would err on the side of caution. Thank you.
I think, Mr. Trent, you're next.
Can I just make one comment on something that Ms. Felice said?
Yes.
I just want to clarify, I agree with Ms. Felice in regards to her comment about public being at the meetings and hoping in a larger space. I really thought that was a plan that we were working towards, and I was remiss in bringing it up. But I do want to capitalize on that comment and the fact that the public was involved in this process in terms of 68% saying we should be back to school based on the survey we did. So I want to make sure that we're and to the point of the 93-page document, which was very hard to read through, right? And I don't think any of us were able to read through 93 pages, but.
I
I
did,
did.
Oh, did you? Good for you.
I did.
I tried. I got close, but I don't think I got through them all.
of every comment.
But, you know, I appreciate the superintendent including that because that was asked for by the board for everything to be there unedited so that we could read it. Thank you. I apologize, Mr. Trent.
So I just wanted to say that creating a phased reopening plan without considering the second wave is a setup for closure. You know, I can guarantee you that there will be a second wave. I work in a hospital. Mr. Parker is on the board of a hospital, and both hospitals are preparing for that second wave. And I'm sure the other hospitals on Long Island are doing the same thing because they're erring on the side of caution as well, you know, foreseeing the future. I just had a couple questions about just how we got here to this plan. I know I had asked for or suggested a survey be put out to the students. Was that done, Dr. Jones?
The survey did go out to students. It didn't necessarily talk about how to come back. It was more of a social emotional survey.
And is there any results, or is that still
No, I
out?
do not have the results.
And so I want to talk about the robocalls. Were there robocalls that went out about the people who tested positive in the district, whether they were staff or students?
They went at the building level, yes.
Only the building level.
I heard not robocalls. I
What was
heard
that?
letters only.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, I didn't get any.
Connect Ed,
Yeah.
when you say robocalls, I think of Connect Ed. Connect Ed letters went out for the.
So I would like to get those building robocalls and those building connect Ed emails. We got a letter, an email, and it hit the nail right in the head. I think that we are board members, elected by the community, and we should be in touch with the things that are going on in the district. And I think it is absolutely necessary, because I don't have any kids in the district, and I would not be receiving any emails or robocalls about what's going on. And I think that letter that was sent out in the middle school is a perfect example of why it's important for us to be in contact with, you know, the things that are being sent out.
Yeah, so the reason that being is because there's only a click off for district-wide for me to be able to add someone in who's a non-parent. We have that in for all community members. To put you in as a building, I'd have to look at that because you're not a parent. We probably have to put you in as a parent and assign fake students for each grade level. I'm not sure how that would work. but it might be. a
I'll borrow
workaround.
somebody's child.
You
or-
can have my children anytime you want.
But I do agree, Cameron, I think that we should all be getting all correspondence. And like, I don't know anything out of the high school, so, besides the high school, so I would like to know what's going on in the other buildings too.
That was actually something I'd raised at a prior meeting, because I'm in the category of not getting any Connect Ed, any robocalls, any copies of letters that go, and I'm reliant upon what's given to me by other board members or other parents who forward them to me. And that it's not a reliable way of communication. So if there's a way that you can get board members included on all of these notices, that would be great. And I would like to think that our tech department could figure out how to do that for us.
And I know that Ms. Felice brought it up.
Hold on, because Ms. Aruta's talking. Hold on.
I'm sorry, and I know that Ms. Felice brought it up, and I had asked as well, when we do have positive cases. I really would like to see it come from central administration so that this way it can go out to all of the buildings and all of the parents. You know,
Yes.
ultimately, finding out on the report card is just.
So we can do that. The timeliness will not be as quick because I'm not sitting in the office all day. Also, when we did that during the perceived threat era, you may recall, we got feedback from the community to stop it. They indicated that they weren't paying attention to calls and they were missing calls that they felt were important because they were getting calls they didn't want.
So when you
And I understand that, but I think with the COVID right now and the fact that, whether it's calls or the district email, because, I didn't get a robocall from the middle school, I did get an email. So if it's, I don't know if that's the route that we're going with the robocalls, although I would like it to go that route. I know in my own district and my husband's district, each night the phone is ringing from one of the districts and, it's just par for the course. It's just the hand we've been dealt right now. So everyone can let it go to voicemail if they want to or whatever, but I do think it is important that the information come from central administration so it can go out to the entire community of parents.
Ms. Felice, if you can bear with me, I
Apologize.
just want to finish that. So has the district stopped sending out communications about somebody got sent home with symptoms that could be a cold or a flu?
No, right now, and as I indicated earlier, right now we're doing letters and calls at the building level.
That somebody got sent home sick,
Sick.
even if it's not confirmed COVID?
Correct.
I didn't get calls
I-
about high school sick, did
Well,
you?
I'm
I get an
I
email.
don't,
I'm
no,
gonna
we get them
pass.
through the board. we don't get calls
Yeah.
about
I
them
was-
being sick from the
No,
high school.
you would get a call, everyone gets a letter. And if you're an affected child in a classroom, you would get a phone.
Right. Oh, no, I think you're talking about
I
being
thought you meant,
sick.
I thought you meant sick.
The
I'm
ones
like,
that
oh,
we said
that's
home sick.
For children that go home sick,
Mhm.
the building sends a letter to the building, both staff and families. And if your child was in the class with a child who had symptoms, a phone call is made to the family as well.
Are we no longer talking about reopening schools? Because we're on a different topic.
No, this,
Actually,
I mean-
this is part of it because I
This is
had
about-
complaints made by parents, some of whom didn't get the survey.
Mhm.
And apparently because of not being registered on the Blackboard system.
Mhm.
And they haven't been able to get that cleaned up so that they could get access to things. So there's still glitches that need to be worked out. Other people have said they don't want to know that somebody's sent home with this, symptoms of a cold or allergies or the flu. They do want to know if it's a confirmed COVID. So, that's just to throw that out, to take it into account when we're talking about giving notice to whether it's classroom parents or buildings or the wider community. Now,
Sure.
Ms. Felice was on hold, so back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to concur with your feelings about, and also support that those who don't have children in the school on the Board of Education are not getting the kind of information that we need to make educated decisions as a Board of Education. So I can't stress enough how ridiculous I think this is, that we are prohibited from getting information because we're not a parent of a student. We're the Board of Education, and anything that goes out to the general population of every school should be given to the Board of Education, period. It shouldn't be a matter of if we can do it, it's a matter of why haven't we done it, and it should be done now.
Thank you for that.
Now, can
Mr. Trapp?
my next question was about the way we are contacting our families. The emails that we're sending, is it their personal emails or is it district assigned email?
It's the emails that they give us when they register or when they update it in the Power Portal themselves.
Okay. So do we know how many families we don't have an email of or that aren't receiving any emails from us?
We could probably look at that. We have looked at that. We particularly focused on our Spanish-speaking families this year in contacting them and making sure that we had their emails in. However, couple, 3 years ago, we set it up so parents could update their own information and make sure they give us their email on their own through the website. So at times, people delete that and it doesn't, they don't get an email as a result of it. But we have, I think we've done a pretty good job to make sure that we have as many folks' emails that want us to have them. Are some missing? Sure, I'm sure there are.
But I would like to see like a percentage or some data that shows how many families we are sending emails to. Because if we have a survey, but we are missing 10-15% of the family's email, that means that they're not getting our information, which means they aren't able to participate in whatever survey or anything we want them to participate in. So I would like to see how many families we are contacting.
To that point though, because, and it's a good point to see how many people we're not reaching. But a survey, a survey is basically just a poll, right? It takes a temperature based on a percentage of people. We captured a large percentage of people compared to most surveys. So if the conclusion by some is that, the data is flawed because not everybody responded, I think is a little silly. And in all honesty, as we sit here and we're debating, and as my frustration is growing, and I know many parents are, what was the purpose of the survey? Because I really didn't hear anybody really rely on any of that data. Everybody I'm hearing about what might happen. I heard this might happen. I read this story that might be a second wave and this school closed because of this. We're not really talking about, it was a waste of the parents' time to fill it out because this board basically discounted it. It dismissed it. That's the way it feels, and that's the way it feels from the 24 messages I've gotten in the last 15 minutes. So what was the purpose of it?
Well, the discussion isn't complete.
So I didn't discount a survey by any means, but like you said, it was a poll.
It was a poll, exactly. It was a poll that
that-
captured. So I think it's clear to say that 68% of our families want their kids in school more.
But it is our responsibility as a board to ensure the safety of the coming back in and breaking that barrier.
And 68%
So
of
this
families just said they
conversation
trust
needs to
our
happen at
plan.
this table.
You know what, it's funny because as long as I've sat at this table, I listen to people say, what does the community want? What do our parents want? And it seems like it's convenient, it works
And
sometimes, but
nobody's
not
saying
others.
that's not going to happen. We're just having a discussion
I know,
as
but
to whether it should
but
happen
the
now.
conversation's about reopening schools, and now we're talking about robocalls and letters and Blackboard Connect. There's a recommendation for action, so, I mean, I don't understand why we're believing it, so let's put the motion
Ann
up.
wanted to speak, let.
Talk, I
Ms.
saved
President.
myself for the last, and I've got a few things I'd like to comment on. And I'm going to try not to duplicate things that I've heard around the table. But there are things in this phase-in plan that's been presented that I like very much. I think it's been an effort to, I like seeing on there that there will be a dedicated teacher for remote learners in the elementary grades. I like that very much. And in terms of some of the other, there was a mention of music and how that's suffering. There's technology things that are available. For example, children, if they've got the instruments at home, there's an app where it's an a cappella app and they can play with their friends or with other members in the class. So I think there should be an investigation, in the music department. I'm using that as an example of an improvement that can be made to help, and it would help, give activities to the children at home the way Mr. Pacini described them. There's, I really appreciated the comment about let's fix the remote issues, get that up and running with the live teacher, straighten out the attendance issues that were discussed, and do that before expanding. The priorities, I appreciated seeing how the superintendent, after conferring with the different committees, expressed priorities in an effort to provide some equity here, like to provide the most help to the ones who need it most first, and then phase in everybody else.
And President Hayes, I'm sorry to cut you off. But since we started talking about this, I have sat here and I have listened to every trustee make their comments, give their 2 cents, ask their questions, and every time I got to a question, I was cut off, and then we started talking about something else. And I just want to say that it is very rude that I was not able to finish my questions. I give everybody their time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then when I started to ask questions, I was cut off. I just want to say that is very rude.
Well, why don't I take a break?
It's okay. I need to take a break. Everyone,
I
ask
may-
all the questions.
I'll tell you, I've made my best effort to try to go around the table and give everybody a chance to talk. I have a concern about the 2-week intervals. I'm not sure that I think that those are spaced enough, but I could hear that's something I could be persuaded on. I am concerned about the reliance on barriers because my concern there is it's more of an apparent safety measure as opposed to an actual one. And based upon what Ms. Felice said at the state conference, that seems to be the wisdom that is being shared there. I want to go back to the equity issue though, and make sure that the children who are in our E&L classes and the children who have special ed and need more physical contact with their teachers or their occupational therapist or physical therapist or, for the services they get through us. Dr. Gianni, can you tell me how that fits within this plan?
Sure, so this plan is by grade level, so those students would come back as the grade level head would come back as well.
So since we've got grade 8, 10, and 11, according to this phase-in, any child whose E&L, for example, would not get the benefit of the added services until then?
No, he or she would get the services. What we couldn't do was we couldn't single out, special ed and then do a grade level. You had to either go by a group or you had, one group or the other. So we chose the most equitable way to do that is by grade level, because obviously these youngsters are in all those grade levels, right? So that's how we chose to do that. So they would get their services as they came back. And I believe the hybrids are also getting their services now. Some may be remote, some may be pull-out, but obviously when they would come back to school full 4 days, they would be getting additional services.
Now, my comment with regard to the survey materials and the papers and so forth, in the 90-some pages of comments from parents, and as I said, I read every single one of them. And I think that everybody had a valid point, but we had parents making comments, some of who want to go back 5 days a week and aren't concerned about the reduced 6-foot distancing, for example, all the way to parents who have said that they won't send their children to school unless that's maintained. So there's a wide range, and I know Mr. Pacini kept talking about percentages. I did the math here. With regard to the responses, there was 1,124 responses, which is roughly, it's a bit more than 25% of the number of students that we have in the district.
But not households.
No, this says responses, and it broke it down by the children, and you add up the number of students,
But the responses
which
were for
came up.
households, were they not? Never mind, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, the total out of the responses of the students that were covered in those responses is 1,665, which is about 39% of the total students. So then I'll just accept your 68% of the responses. That's 68% of roughly 40%, which is about 25% of the total students. And that fits in with what I picked up from reading all the comments with the wide range of concerns that parents had. So I'm going to take a break here, and I'm going to say to Mr. Trent, I'm sorry I'm sorry that it seemed that you were being interrupted. I felt I was trying to have the dialogue, and I thought that you were getting your comments made. So I'm sorry that it didn't come across that way.
I appreciate that. I guess there's only a couple questions that I wanted to ask, because I kind of have my mind made up about this plan. So I just wanted to just double check a couple of things. The PPE bins in the classrooms, are they still being properly restocked?
Yes.
And I wanted to ask a question about attendance. Is there a way where we could get attendance reports and also the reports of the nurse when the students visit the nurse? I noticed that we haven't gotten any of those.
Yes, we can do that.
Also, can you tell me if any, what kind
I'm
of...
sorry, so not attendance, nurse report.
The nurse reports, and I would like to see some form of attendance report. Anything that could be put together efficiently or in the most easiest manner for administration, I would appreciate that.
Do you want, would that be like the attendance reports that have to go to the state?
Like I said, anything that, that shows the data.
Let me see what is what reports we have that we may be able to pull.
Sounds good. And can you tell me, if any, what kind of extra cleaning was done when the teacher told us that they tested positive?
Sure, whenever we have a COVID positive, the classes are closed and custodians go in and do a complete thorough cleaning. They include not only the wipe downs, but also the mister.
And that's with a positive case
Yes.
in all buildings?
Yes.
And how about when a student is sent home with symptoms? Is extra cleaning done? And
There
that's,
is a cleaning done for those as well, yes.
can we make sure that that is done in all of the buildings? Because I have gotten some texts from teachers that that is not the case.
Sure. I believe it is, but I will certainly double check with the principals.
And my last question is, the teacher that tested positive, was there any staff that was advised to quarantine, or was it only students?
Just students, just the 32 that were reported.
And what did the contact tracing look like in that situation?
It's rather extensive. There's a bunch of forms that we have to provide that includes the contact that the teacher made with everyone, includes when mask breaks are given, it includes who rode on the bus, the DOH requires a great deal of extensive information that we give them. These students were required to quarantine because they had contact with this individual twice. That's how the DOH determined these students.
And they determined that based off of the 6 feet, the mask break.
Based on all the information that we had given them, yes. They ask all those questions. What's the distance?
That's all the questions I have.
Okay.
Can I just ask
Mr.
one
Ruda?
question?
Mrs. Ancona.
Thank you. So, when we got the report in, you had said that the remote learners were gonna have to commit to a year, but then before when you were reading it, you said semester. So, which is it? Is it a
I'm sorry,
quarter?
who said year?
You had said originally that it would be a year commitment. I forgot where I read it in one of the papers. Are they gonna have to commit to that?
I never said year.
Okay,
That
so-
might have come up in a conversation somewhere, but I never said that. No, the commitment would be for the semester.
For the whole
Quarter,
semester?
like a
For the whole,
quarter,
no,
right?
the semester.
Like,
So
so
there's
2
2
quarters?
semesters in the secondary and there are 3 semesters in the elementary.
Okay. Wait, I'm confused. So choose 2 quarters, because in secondary there's quarters. So you're saying
Sure,
for
so
2
2
quarters?
quarters equals 1 semester.
Right, okay, because that's why I was getting confused. And then, when we originally spoke about this in the summer, we did speak about, and I believe that you had answered a few emails with parents saying that before anybody came back, the special ed and the ENL and the dual would be considered to come back. Why can't, since they are a smaller population within all these grades, why can't we bring them back first throughout the school and throughout the schools? Because I'm sure that's less of a population, but we can bring back all those grade levels at the same time. So instead of bringing back all the 9th graders, bring back 9, 10, 11, 12, inclusion, ENL, and all those back, because then we're gonna get the kids who really need the interaction and their services, like Ann said.
Well, again, it's a matter of equity, sure. Those students are more in need, but we don't have the space in all the buildings to be able to do that equally across the district. So for example, at the high school, we could probably do that. Kramer, who is a special ed building, I don't think that is gonna be able to happen there. So we couldn't do the same in every one of our buildings if we were to look at it in groups. It's accurate, over the summer, I said we would look at groups as we began, and we did. But we just felt, moving towards getting all students back, the most equitable way to do it would be by grade level and focusing on the younger kids first.
Okay, and then lastly, on the New York State DOH website, where you were reading from before, and I just got out of it by accident, but you had said the minimum guidelines for the school reopening. But next to it, there's a recommended, and it's checked, like what would be better than minimum. And I've said this time and time again, that we're never the best at anything. We always do the bare minimum in this district. So one of the things on that list is about busing and social distancing. And it says they highly recommend that family members stay together, otherwise you socially distance with a mask on the bus. So this reopening guideline is the bare minimum, but this is what's our protocols now are what keeping the numbers low. So, and again, keeping us open. So I just don't see why we can't ever strive to do something better and go with the recommended instead of what the bare minimum is. It's like every single time we do something, it's let's just do the minimum of what the government wants or what the minimum we're required. And I just feel like we need to be better than that. Like we're ahead of the game right now, I think, district-wise, from what I'm seeing in the surrounding areas. And the busing is a major concern. Regardless of whether the parents say that they're gonna take a bus or not, there's gonna be times where a kid might have to take a bus. And then you're squeezing them all onto this bus. As a matter of fact, Riverhead lost their bus drivers because of one birthday party that the drivers were at. They don't have any drivers. Then Floyd today had to quarantine a whole bus because of a driver. So if we don't have transportation, we're not gonna have an equal education for these kids because they're not all gonna be able to get to school. Not every parent's gonna be able to drive them. So where you're looking at classrooms too and teachers and not enough staff to teach them, you're not gonna have enough bus drivers to get them there. And it's already been a problem in a local district. So it's a major concern. And I understand that we're all saying what if, but we do know what the worst case scenario is now. We know that 220,000 people died. And just because you're over it doesn't mean it's over.
Stop, I didn't say.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm
Okay,
sorry. I'm
you're
talking
looking at
about
me, so-
in general. If I understand it's so frustrating and I wish life can get back to normal. And I want these kids to be back, including my own. And I want them to have a normalcy. It's just so scary when you know their lives are at risk, the teachers' lives are at risk, your community's at risk. We have people with multi-dwelling families, multi-generational families. We have older people, in our community. We just need to be responsible. And I feel like once we open the schools at full force, there's gonna be no holds bar. Everybody's just gonna be everywhere, gallivanting, doing whatever they want, having parties. I mean, this is a serious, I don't understand. We don't even have enough room in the cafeterias I'm just picturing Bellport Middle School alone, the way we saw the cafeteria when we went through the walkthrough. How are you gonna fit all those desks in there? Even at 3 feet apart, those desks are about 2 feet. They're gonna be right up, you might as well have the tables and they just eat right next to each other. Because I don't see how either of those cafeterias can fully function.
2 cafeterias and an overflow.
Where's the overflow?
I think it's outside the auditorium.
So outside, like meaning in a hallway? The kids
I'm
eat?
not sure exactly the location, but there's an overflow to be able to allow for it.
I don't know. It's scary and it's a big decision to me. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Pacini?
Thank you. A couple of points and probably I think I'm going to be done now. We've talked a little bit about equity tonight, and the equity is going to be further divided because, when we talk, I believe that those that are affected the worst right now by kids not being in school full-time are the poor, the homeless in our district. I can sit here and talk about a young man I know who's a senior who is homeless and that I work with, and this young man hadn't been to school more than a few times all year, okay? There's no account that we have homes with parents who aren't driving their kids to do anything, okay? But if they have a place to go and they have school, that's why school is so important to so many, okay? And that's something that this board cannot discount. It is way too important. Further, we're gonna remediate these students for years at thousands of, probably even millions of dollars, okay, for what their education is deficient in now, okay? That's, to me, is the long-range repercussions of this, okay? And I know, Zanconia mentioned lives at risk a few times. The death rate for anybody under a certain age is basically nothing. I mean, it's a little ridiculous.
It's
I mean,
long-term effects.
school age.
Forget death. How about the long-term
All right,
effects
but fine,
for
but
us?
you know what? I mean, we live with the flu. We have no choice.
It's not even a comparison. The doctor
I'm not
who
comparing
originally
the virus, but the
compared
fact is, it's not going anywhere.
20,000 people
Okay,
don't
and people
die in
keep
7
talking
months
about a
from the flu.
vaccine. They didn't
I'm not
develop
going there.
a chickenpox vaccine for 40 years. We're gonna wait here for a vaccine, and we're gonna sit here and we're gonna further divide the line here in equity in our students. We're gonna be remediating students, and we're risking the mental health of our students. Again, I'm kind of stunned that this conversation has gone the way, well, I shouldn't say stunned, because I certainly did anticipate it to some degree. But I'm really heartbroken for the families who pleaded their hearts out for their kids to be back in school. And I'm one of them. I'm dealing with it. 3 kids. I got a senior who really needs to get it in gear to get into college, okay? This isn't helping, and he's the first one to say, I want to go to school. My kids are begging to go to school.
My son wants to go to school.
You know what they call,
We all want
you know what
to.
they call recess in elementary school? They call it yard time, because they just, they're in their separate groups. I mean, what are we doing to these
What do you think's
kids?
gonna happen? They're not gonna go back to normal,
It's gonna be the
Chris.
same thing,
Well,
worse.
They're not going
but
back
it's
to
like,
normal.
but at least
Sorry,
they have
sorry.
other things to be able to be happy
And
about.
I agree,
Seeing
Chris.
friends,
I
socialization. So then
I
why
want
aren't we
the kids
doing
to go-
anything about it? I get it. I'm sitting here listening to personal opinions about what might happen. There's gonna be a second wave, and oh my God. I mean, the hospitals were never overrun. It was never an issue here, okay?
kidding?
And this was, they
Are you
weren't.
kidding?
They weren't.
They were too.
We had
Yeah,
rooms
come on.
in the ER waiting
On
room.
South Country.
Listen,
And the ER waiting room was a room for a
Yeah,
patient.
and Stony Brook also spent $10 million building temporary hospitals that were never used. You want to debate
No,
that?
but we had 2 trailers full of dead bodies.
Never got used.
Full of
Forget it.
dead bodies.
Listen, that's history. We'll put it over there. Forget it. That's
We'll be there
Doesn't
soon,
matter.
unfortunately.
The fact remains that it's not an issue right now. Okay,
You
what?
learn from history. You don't want to repeat
You
on
don't
that.
panic, okay?
You don't wanna
You
repeat on that.
quarantine the sick. Okay, there's an option for those that fear the virus. There is an option for them to stay on remote if they want. There is no option for the families
And that's
that
it.
want their kids and are concerned about their education and their social emotional well-being. It's stunning, and listening to the stories and what I was able to read of that, and the people I've spoke to, and all the social media stuff that we've talked about. Listen to these parents, elementary school kids tantruming every day because the damn internet went out, or they can't get this into this text box. Because another thing what I'm talking about is that a Chromebook is basically a piece of garbage when it comes to technology. I mean, it really is, right? I mean, it is.
I have a
It's
question.
difficult to use, it's clunky, there's constantly issues.
I don't
Talk
have
to
issues.
you know what, my wife's been a teacher for 26 years, she'll tell you, this is a disaster trying to put stuff on remote. That's why her district, she's got 20 kids at 3 feet for the last month and hasn't had an issue. So,
Mr. Trapp?
So when we rush this and we go into everybody in the building and when we will have to shut down, what will our discussion be then?
Right.
then we should have shut down no matter what, if it happens. It's not-
You guys
So
didn't
now-
want to shut down before. I remember emailing
Got
the
it.
board before the governor and all the other school districts closed. I'm sorry, Cameron.
No, you're
I
right.
emailed every single board member on this board, and I told them, you should be closing. What are you doing? Until the governor said that you closed, you guys would not close. So I don't trust this board to do that. I don't trust Dr. Gianni to just close like that. That's not happening. I'm sorry,
I
Cameron, I
have
did
to
not
say-
mean to.
School
I
wasn't
have
open
to-
one day after it got to the point where everybody started
But guess
closing.
what? You weren't
It
even
wasn't.
gonna do it,
But
so it doesn't
happened.
matter.
But it still happened.
No,
See, you talk about what made it
Because
happen,
somebody
maybe this,
made
or what the,
you.
nobody made us. It was,
Yeah.
that's not.
The
No,
governor.
what, I need to say something here. It was very complicated, and if you talk to Dr. Gianni about it, it had to do with the number of days in school, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why the executive order from the governor was so important.
But what I'm saying is now the governor left it up to us, and I still don't trust us to do that. That is one major thing that I can't get out of my head, that I remember other districts in the area closing, South Country would not close. And I know I wasn't the only one that emailed you guys. So if they can't trust us to do the right thing, why, we should be doing the right thing now and making a thoughtful plan and a slow phase in. And after all these gatherings, let's see how Thanksgiving does. Let's see what happens after Thanksgiving when everybody's together and people are traveling. It does not make sense to do this now.
It makes a lot of sense. We're
Did-
losing valuable time.
No, it doesn't.
These poor kids were losing valuable time every
And that
day.
survey, multiple people could have filled it out, Chris.
Oh, come on.
It
So now we're
didn't
just gonna
even
sit here and
stop.
shoot holes in this
Nobody-
survey?
You're
That's
no, but you're like
disrespectful to the
holding it
people.
to this
It's
thing.
disrespectful for the families that filled it out and pleaded their hearts out. No, it's
No,
not.
it's not.
Yes, it
I'm
is.
telling you,
Okay.
you need
This
real
has
data.
to stop, because when you talk about conclusions, about the facts, it devolves into a back and forth here. The bottom line is that in that survey, as well as all the comments, we had a 180-degree spectrum of responses. And everybody is suffering under this pandemic on various levels. We need to determine what is best in a situation where we can look at option A and option B and not being comfortable and not wanting to do A, but not being comfortable and not wanting to do B, and then what are we gonna do? That's what I'm hearing here. I wanna stop for just a minute and I wanna ask another question. When you talk about the priorities of grade levels coming back in, did you give thought to including the 11th graders and the 12th graders at the same time? The theory being seniors who it's their last year and they need it all together before going off into their future plans. And the 11th graders where they also are gearing up for what their plans are going to be after high school.
We thought about all of those scenarios, including bringing the 9th grade in because they transitioned in. We did not look at 2 grade levels at one time because we felt that was too much too soon, particularly at the secondary level. So if you look at the secondary level, you'll see it's 1, 1, and then 2 at the high school and 1, 1, 1 at the middle school. A gradual increase in density there. And we felt the seniors did need to come in. Listen, you could argue, as Mr. Bacini said, you could argue 11th grade is important. You could argue 12th grade is important. You could certainly argue 9th grade is important. And ultimately, in the end, we felt the 12th grade should come in first.
All right, I'm going to ask if there are additional comments that anybody feels they need to make.
I do.
Okay, Mr. Trent?
I think it's important, since we're gathered here, that we have to come to a consensus. We have to have some direction. And I think all of us want our kids back. But I don't want to go backwards. I don't want to take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And I think that since we're here, we need to have some plan to move forward.
All right, why don't we kind of poll the board and see what each Ms. Felice, I'm sorry, I didn't look over. Did you have another comment? No? Okay. Let's go around, and if each person could just sum up what they think we ought to be doing with regard to our reopening plan, starting from where we are right now to where it's being proposed. So who wants to go first? And I'm going to go around the table so that everybody gets to talk. Ms. Aruda.
I would like to revisit this after the holiday season. We are looking at November 1st, starting next week. Between the Thanksgiving break and the Christmas break, there is a significant amount of time off anyway. I do think to be able to have a well-thought-out plan that might work some of those question marks that we talked about after the holidays might be a time that we can definitely revisit it. Not that I don't want our children back, I absolutely do want our children back, but I think it needs to be done properly.
Mr. Parker.
I would echo what Ms. Aruda said. Although I agree with some of what everyone in the room said tonight. I do understand the parents who think that children should be in the classroom. And I also have listened to parents who know their children should be in the classroom because they are not getting any education whatsoever. They're playing in the streets or somewhere, but they're not doing their homework. So the fear of this thing spreading to a level that we haven't seen before just outweighs me wanting to have the kids back in the classroom.
Okay, Mr. Parker?
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Piccini.
So I think everybody knows how I feel about this. I believe there is a well-thought-out plan that included all stakeholders. I think if there is a second wave that everybody seems to be so concerned about, it won't matter whether we're open 5 days, 4 days, 2 days, or no days. It's going to come, it's not going to be affected by school being open more, which is evident by some of the studies that came out this week. And I think more importantly, everything that has been proposed here by the administration is within the guidelines put forth by the state with the health officials involved, the barriers and everything else. And I know we talked, some people mentioned that some people say it's, they're ineffective. Well, they're still part of the plan, they're still part of the regulations from the health officials. So as far as I'm concerned, that's good enough for me. But I guess the biggest question is, what's the criteria? Because, you know, we can talk all we want about doing it in the future, which again, I think is way too late. We might as well do it now. If we shut down, we're gonna shut down anyway. There's an option for those that fear their kids coming back more. There is still a 100% remote option. You know, I don't understand how we can be the outlier in this scenario when most schools are going back. And I'm really concerned about those kids that don't have a voice in this room, okay? The kids who don't have parents around, the homeless kids, okay? All those socioeconomically challenged kids. And I really fear what's gonna happen to them in the future. My kids will be fine, okay? I'm sure the other board members in here's children will be fine, okay? There's a greater need here. And I can only imagine how many social workers and how much social emotional learning programs we're gonna need in the future if we do not open soon. But more importantly, to end on this note, because I really feel like I'm spitting in the wind, is, you know, what's the criteria? I mean, it just, all I'm hearing is, you know, we're shooting holes in the survey, and what if this might happen? You know, we can all have those exact same comments in January, which I think is, you know, after the holidays. So what is the criteria? The state's in a good position. I don't know what the rate is now. I don't think it's.
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5, okay?
Which is up from 0.9.
Yeah, okay, still up,
Jersey,
it's fine, it's fine,
Pennsylvania,
listen.
Massachusetts, Connecticut are all
That's
on
fine,
the-
listen, I get it,
Yeah.
it's gonna go up. We have to learn to live with this virus, it's not going away, it's gonna be here next year. Because I, for one, am not taking a vaccine that was rushed for 4 months.
And nobody's saying that.
So, no, but it's not going away. Everybody's waiting for this to go away. So when are we ever gonna open up schools? What's the criteria? And I would hope that the board members think about that and think about what that criteria is. Because these same issues we're bringing up right now are going to be here after the holidays.
And then we'll address
Because
it.
there could be another one in February when, you know, it's snowy season. Or when the seasons change and people get sick. And everything else. So, that's it. I think it's a disservice to our students not to open now, and that's evident by the responses from the community we received, including the 68% of parents who responded that they wanted kids back to more in-person instruction on our survey.
Ms. Felice?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly, my feelings were known. I don't trust the survey. I don't trust that it was, that it adequately reached enough families for all the reasons that I stated before, all the reasons that a number of board members have already echoed, that it's too soon, and the information that we have is not enough to feel comfortable in doing the right thing, so I do not support the reopening plan as presented.
Mr. Trent?
I actually favor Gina's plan, Ms. Ancona's plan, I'm sorry. And I wanted to talk a little bit about testing, because, you know, currently, you know, when the student goes home with symptoms, it's not a mandate that they get tested, is it, Dr. Gianni?
And no, they could get a note from their healthcare provider.
So they could be cleared to come back to school without the definition that they don't have COVID. And for me, that is very concerning, because at this point, no one has any form of a picture of what the district looks like when it comes to COVID cases, because we're only notified when there is a negative case. Is anybody telling us if they test a positive case? I'm sorry. Is anyone telling us if they have a negative case? Is there any?
Yes.
We are? When students get tested, when faculty get tested with
Yeah,
negative?
when they get tested, they share with us a negative case.
So what do those numbers look like? How many are getting tested versus how many we have, and how many are testing negative?
Well, we only know the ones that we send home, and some parents will take them to the healthcare provider, and the healthcare provider will test them.
No, I'm talking about the students who aren't sent home, because it's obvious that they have symptoms.
I don't know that.
So that's my point, is that the people who are coming into work, leaving work, you know, to school, leaving school, they aren't getting tested, or they aren't reporting if they are getting tested. So I don't have a clear view of what the dynamics looks like. Is our district being, you know, getting tested at an acceptable rate or a decent rate, or they're not getting tested at all? I don't know what those numbers look like. So I feel like I want to talk more about testing in our plan, because as Mr. Ruda said, when we have to quarantine students, it is because of the teacher is positive, you know, from the most part. So I think that we definitely have to talk about testing. And currently, I'm not in favor of the plan that was recommended.
So we did quarantine 2 youngsters from the student transmission.
Yeah, but when we had the quarantine of 32 students,
yeah.
that was because of the teacher. And I think that, you know, that is a very big difference. So I would like to have the staff tested, you know, regularly if there's that big of a difference. You know, when you have to quarantine 2 students because a student was positive.
I don't think that's legal to do that.
Okay, well then I wouldn't be in favor of the plan. If you have to quarantine 30, with this current model, 32 students with 1 teacher positive. We have, what, 300, how many faculty do we have? 300, 200 plus?
Well, 300 grade level.
Yeah. So, right now, I would assume, from talking to the doctors in the hospital, that, you know, there's maybe 1 out of every 25 people have COVID. So I think that, you know, testing is something that needs to be talked about.
Ms. Ancona.
So just to piggyback on what Cameron said, I know that the lines out of City MD are mainly for testing, are mainly for people to be cleared to go back to work, just to even go to work. Some people have to get tested every 2 weeks. So, and I thought that we should have done that to reopen, and I think I did mention it before, but I think that that may be something, and I think that we might really want to look at that for coming back from the holiday break, because what if they're going away and we don't know about it and stuff like that. So I really do think that might be, he's onto something with that, and that we are allowed to require it, because many companies do that.
I think those are private companies, Ms. Ancona.
Oh, okay, maybe we
Public
should
sector
check with
cannot-
Mr.
cannot
Sheehan.
require that.
Yeah.
Certainly, I'll get advice from
Okay.
council.
I think that we should wait until after the holidays as well. I do just want to make sure that we're on
I'm sorry,
top.
test all faculty and staff?
Yeah, I think that regularly, I think that we should be. I mean, I would, you know, I just think that it would help, and it would also give them peace of mind too, especially if we're gonna be bringing a lot of kids back, that they can know, okay, I'm good, you know, this week, and like, they're not, this isn't looming over them as much, and I mean, I don't know, I guess they should be pulled to see if they wanted to, but it might actually help them feel better, but.
Can I don't mean to interrupt you, but we mentioned the holidays a couple of times. Are you referring to after Thanksgiving, or are you
No,
referring
I would
to
rather
after
wait until after Christmas break, but what I would like to do, and that was my next point, is start planning it now. Like, start a phased-in plan starting after the new year, and have it so parents are reassured that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that we just need to stay on top of the live teaching, making sure that the kids are being taught all day and it's not left up to the parents. We just need to make sure that we're on top of them. And I think attendance really needs to get straightened out because it's still a mess. And that's it. Thank you.
And let me clarify, over here with Ms. Aruda and Mr. Parker, you also said after the holidays. Did you mean after Thanksgiving or after
The New Year,
Christmas?
yeah, the New Year. The New Year, after the New Year, yeah.
Mr. Parker? After the New Year? Okay. So, I'm very uncomfortable with deviating from the 6-foot social distancing with the mask requirement. I could see doing the deviation at the elementary level, and that would be K through 5, because even though technically 6 is in the elementary portion, it's in a secondary building. I also want to see the improvement in the remote learning with the live teacher for the elementary grade levels. And I would like to expand opportunity for physical activity. You know, to me, I'm not in the competitive sports culture, but in terms of physical activity, I think it would be a benefit for the students. And if we could expand it for middle school and perhaps even look at, at the entire secondary level, including 6th grade, to have a physical activity somehow incorporated into our learning environment. And not watching videos when it's raining, because maybe they could even do yoga or, some other types of things that you could do at home. And improve the music, like I mentioned before. I know that there are technological things that can be done to make it possible, even when people are in different locations. I'd like to see us brought into the 21st century with regard to the technology, so that we really can expand what is available to students and still keeping them safe. So this is a very hard decision for me to take, because my heart goes out to everybody who's struggling at home and who's struggling with what this pandemic has brought into their households and into our communities. But I think that, in my mind, I have to try to keep an eye on the education that's being provided. What can we improve to make it better? And which students could we bring back in? And I think it would just be the elementary grades. And again, after the holidays makes sense to me, although if we're only talking about elementary grades, I could be persuaded to try it with the elementary grades even before. But, that's gonna kind of take reworking a little bit, the phasing that you do.
Can I just ask you a question
Yeah.
with that? Because when you first started, you said you hesitated deviating from the 6-foot distance, even for K through 5. So do you mean within the 3 feet, like going down to 3 feet for the K through 5, you could be persuaded?
I think I could be persuaded to do that. And with masks, but that one seems to be accepted. And it seems like our student population is accepted and is being very responsible about it.
Is there a possibility to open up the cafeterias if you did that, instead of having them eat in the classroom with the teachers?
At the elementary level, no, the principal's report, there is not enough room in the cafeterias to do that.
For me, that is my problem with the secondary level, is them eating in the classroom with the mask off at 3 feet.
They don't,
What,
in the cafeteria?
I'm sorry, yeah, in the cafeteria.
Elementary, you mean?
In the elementary,
Yeah.
so. That, for me, I just see the barrier as just completely ineffective.
So just for eating, or just when they're in there learning?
Just like Ms. Hayes said, I could be persuaded to support that if there was no eating. If they ate in the cafeteria somewhere, or you just take out eating altogether, that is a situation where I could be persuaded to support. But when you add the breakfast, the lunch, the snack, that is what I have the problem with.
What about an alternate area?
Say it again?
An alternate area that might not be the cafeteria,
Like
or
gym?
alternate areas.
So if they ate somewhere
6 feet
within
apart.
6 feet, sure, absolutely.
And I can get behind that too.
And I think this kind of goes to what I have been asking about in separating elementary and secondary. And I think if we had started to talk about that maybe in the beginning, we may not have had the situations that we're having tonight.
Well, secondary doesn't have that issue.
No, I know, just I'm saying in general, where we started to talk about, coming back for elementary, and again, I'm not looking to shotgun anything, is very different than coming back for secondary. We chose in our reopening plan to have the students move from class to class at secondary, which then is our whole passing time. I know that we're saying that it's not an issue, it's contact tracing. Elementary is stationary, and I quite a few times throughout the past 2 weeks, I really stressed the importance of the separation between the two of elementary and secondary. They require two totally different trains of thought for reentry.
I agree.
I agree.
I would be open to, at our next meeting, if we can, and again, I am not speaking for the board, I'm speaking for myself. If we can look into what elementary might be at a slow rollout, that might be something that we can discuss prior to the break.
And what do you mean by a slow rollout?
Well, I don't think we would put all of them together at the
Well,
same day. It wouldn't be like November 18th, everybody comes back, big party.
Sure.
So that's what I mean in terms of a slow rollout with elementary.
No, but I guess I'm asking what grade level? How many?
Well, I would say, when I refer to elementary, in this case, I'm referring from our pre-K, although I'm not really sure how this is gonna work in pre-K, to 5th grade, even though 6th grade is
Yeah,
elementary.
but I guess what I'm saying is in the first phase, we're doing pre-K and K and 1 and 4. Is that something you would support, or would the
I
board
would-
support that? Because that's, to me, is a slow rollout.
That would be, yes, that would be a slow rollout. Am I ready to approve that tonight? I don't think so. I don't think so without having some more information, maybe some feedback from our administrators, starting to see who was on that team and some of the
Who was on
minutes.
what team?
The reopening committees, I shouldn't have said team, committees. And the minutes,
The
as Ms.
the
Lee
reopening
said,
committees are listed in the
I know, but
in the document.
trustee Felice had asked for some minutes from that information. Again, you know, we spoke about having the information, you know, just given to us right now. I do think with more information, that's definitely something that we can think about. And again, I've asked for 2 weeks for those two to be separated, elementary and secondary.
Yeah, well, we could only separate it once it was closed, and then once it was closed, it took some time to separate.
No, I know, but
gave
even
it
in
to you about a
discussions and
minute
everything.
after I received it.
Right. If, I'll be honest, if this plan had been separate, you know, the reopening had been separate between elementary and secondary, I might, and that is a big might, be thinking differently right now. Because I
Okay,
do feel.
so let me also then say is that if the board is not comfortable with this plan, they can simply say, well, take this out and move the plan forward. So don't think that, you know,
I don't know if I'm
as the
comfortable with
board,
this, right?
as the board has considered other recommendations of mine and made tweaks along with
Right.
those,
No,
I
I
would
understand.
expect the board to do that this evening as well.
Can you say something?
Sure.
I get the points being made. Everybody knows I disagree. That's fine. I didn't really want to say anything else tonight, but as the way that the conversation is going, I felt compelled. We're talking about everybody being back by December 14th. That's more than 6 weeks away. We have time to adjust if something changes. Thanksgiving will be more than 2 weeks over by the time the majority of secondary is back. So while we're talking about K-5, yeah, I get it. I don't know how many meetings we have, probably 2, and we certainly can have a special meeting at any time if we want. If things change, we could always halt the other phases or roll back, whatever the plan is. But this plan is stretched out over the next 6-7 weeks. So what more are we gonna see on December 14th when there's basically a week left until we shut down for 10 days? I mean, we're gonna know everything. So sitting here and saying, let's come back in another 2 weeks, we're losing valuable time. And it's a theme I keep saying, and I said it at the last meeting, I keep saying it today. So, I mean, we certainly can approve this plan to begin the process and halt it at any time, based on
We also
numbers.
need to put out a survey to see if whatever the situation is, and to see who is going to go full-time and who's going to go remote. Because you may have hybrid people now that say, I wanna go full-time. You may have people right now that say, I wanna go fully remote. These are the things that we need to look into before we start sending them back.
We have the survey prepared to go out.
But I mean, with all due respect, Melissa, I just listened to a couple board members shoot holes in the survey we just did.
We
So-
have to, Chris, that's
But
not
no,
a survey.
but the
That's
point is,
different-
what is the
that's-
next survey gonna tell you that's different than this
Chris,
survey?
that's going to tell administration how many people are going to be seated in those seats. There's a difference.
Sure, no,
That's going to say,
I get that.
you know, in
But
Joe Schmo's
But how are
class,
we not, but I guess my point is, you know, I'm not saying we shouldn't do the survey.
we have to.
Okay, great, but why but we can sit here and shoot the same holes in that survey as.
No,
some
can we
boards
do
are
a
doing.
good
That's
survey?
whether your kid is coming into class or they're not coming
Okay,
into
listen,
class.
that's fine.
That's-
That's-
It's like a
you know.
reservation, Chris.
No,
Yeah.
listen, I
Okay.
get it, but the same number, what I'm getting at is the same number of people that didn't respond to this survey are likely not gonna respond to that one.
It's probably
So
because
they're
they didn't
gonna
get
be fully-
it,
they're gonna
which
be
is why I
fully-
asked about the connection. That's
Sure,
why.
the district's done a whole lot
We did
to
do
get
a
kids
robocall.
connected.
But I haven't seen it.
But my point is, we've done a lot to get people connected, okay? That's all I'm saying. If you're in tune to your child's education and you want something, I mean, listen, whatever, I don't want to debate it. I'm just saying, I made my point. You know, I think we should approve the plan and adjust it as needed. I don't see any reason why that the rollout in the first few phases, I mean, we're talking 3 weeks before phase 3 starts. We're 2 weeks before, I'm sorry, phase 3. Talking 3 weeks before the first group starts to come in, and they're in for a week, and then the following week is only 2 days of school, and then we're done for Thanksgiving. I mean, there's a lot of time to react here based on the school schedule and the amount of time that's placed here. So I'll roll back and say I was disappointed earlier and how long it's taken to get back in. Maybe there's wisdom in it that I didn't see earlier, and the fact remains, we can approve this now as is and adjust it. We have another meeting in 2 weeks, and we're talking about a special meeting to discuss, a board self-evaluation. This is something to have a special meeting about. In fact, there's no reason we can't meet weekly for a half an hour on Zoom to discuss it, to discuss what's happening and to monitor it. There's no reason we can't do it.
Well, you just said during executive session that you couldn't do 2 meetings in a week.
I'm not coming to 2 live meetings in a week, sure, if it's gonna be, it's difficult, but you know what? This is a little bit more important. Okay? I'm sorry, I don't take a whole lot of stock in the board self-evaluation. I'm saying it's difficult.
That we talked about December, so
No,
that's not.
understood, I get it, and that's another point, right? That was a lot further out. This is more important. Why don't we meet once a week for a half an hour on Zoom and discuss it? Why not? I don't see any plausible reason we can't approve this and make adjustments to it if anything changes. That's all I'm suggesting. I think that's a fair, reasonable suggestion and compromise to those who have concerns.
Well,
That's all.
let's make a decision on that, because I thought that was a good idea. Let's have a Zoom meeting every Wednesday, except for when we are having our regular board meeting.
I can't do
You
Wednesdays.
can't do
We
Wednesdays.
can do 2, I mean, doesn't have to be Wednesday, in my
Dr.
opinion.
Gianni, you said you had that information that she had, you said you have that. Could you share that
What
with us,
information?
please? What did you just ask?
Committee or meeting
No,
minutes.
no, I think it was the percentage of people that wanted.
Right.
He doesn't have the information, it hasn't gone out.
No, survey prepared, I think is what he said.
Prepared to go out.
Prepared
Yeah,
to
listen,
go out, there's
I
no
don't want
data.
to, I gotta say, I'm somewhat uncomfortable because it's being portrayed that no thought's been given to this. The principals and I and the directors have been working pretty constantly over the last 4 weeks with a great deal of thought into this plan. And I get your reservations, I understand that, and that's certainly your decision, whether you not want to approve it or modify it or whichever. However, if you were to approve it, we already have a list of things that need to be done and who's doing them. We're ready to go. We're absolutely ready to go. I get your concerns about the holidays, the chance of spikes, getting inside the 3 feet, and those are all your decisions, I get it. It's my responsibility to give you a recommendation, and that's what I'm doing. If you're uncomfortable with the November 16th, then I would suggest then move the date. If you're uncomfortable with who we're bringing back when, well then share that with me. Who we're bringing back when and what we're doing in this plan was not done in a vacuum. It was done with the input of the teachers, the families, and every administrator in this district. Okay? I didn't just go home one day and decide what I want to do. There's a little bit of everything in here from all of those groups. Sure, everyone is not happy. I would say there's not one group that's thrilled, right? But there's a little of everything in everyone. And it's designed to go slow so we can watch the metrics and we can make decisions along the way. And just to speak to Mr. Pacini's point about the meetings, your next meeting's November 18th, right? So, and this plan is scheduled to go out the 16th. Initially, we had phase 3 on November 9th and recognized it would be too much of a challenge to figure out who the remote learners were, and that's why we moved it. So again, a great deal of thought went into this, and a great deal of input was taken and used. But I get it, it's up to the board to decide any piece of it or its entirety that they would like to approve.
I
May
just
I
want to
ask-
say that I believe that a lot of time and effort went into this. But oftentimes, it seems as though certain things you dismiss. I just asked you if you could provide me with that information. And you said sure, and then you went off on another tantrum. But I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help our parents. Nothing that I want to do more than help these parents with their kids. So, am I going to get that information or not?
You would like the survey that's developed?
Right.
Yes, certainly.
And can that be posted on the website?
Well, it's not ready to go out. It's
I know, but when it is?
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Not when you
But
get
we
the
can't-
results, the survey
Well-
itself, for the parents who've had trouble through the email or the robocall or whatever, it'll be on the website.
Absolutely, and they all have been, but I can't send it out until we make a decision.
Okay, but I
Because there's
have,
nothing to survey for you.
I have one other question. The remote teachers, the dedicated remote teachers for K through 5, is there a way they could get started earlier?
Possibly. We didn't want to rush into that either. I mean, it is possible we could start sooner. It is. I don't want to promise that. I mean, if we have less moving parts, maybe there could be, you know, if that was the piece that you said you wanted to move up to the 9th, I could say that we can try to make that happen. I don't want to guarantee that that's going to happen.
I think we should just get a primary plan together thoroughly and get it emailed over to us, and then we can call a special meeting to open. But I don't see a reason to rush and approve this now or change anything now. I think that we need everything that we've asked for and that we can make an educated decision next week. Whether it's tonight or Monday, we'll get together. None of us we don't not want to open. We just want to do it thoughtfully and smart. And I think that once we have the primary, leave the secondary out until after the holidays. I think that was the gist of everybody's concerns. And we'll start working on the secondary at our next meeting on the 18th to get it open for after the holidays.
So am I hearing that this plan's acceptable, excluding the secondary schools?
I'd also like to see-
No, I think that we need the information.
Yeah, I would like to, I'm open to having another meeting next week to possibly see some of the information. You know, we're saying 3 feet. Is it going to be 3 feet in every classroom? Is it going to be some classrooms with 2 feet? You know, get a gauge as to what our numbers are going to look like.
Where they're gonna
Obviously, you're not gonna send out a survey yet for remote and hybrid, but we need to gauge our numbers. We need to gauge how many students are gonna be on the buses, what those are going to look like, what the routes will look like, what our cafeterias or extended spaces will look like, what phys ed will look like. You know, so these things that we have in the plan, we really need a bigger gauge on those things if we're talking about coming down into the elementary. I'm at this point more comfortable speaking for the elementary level. Again, this is not new information. I definitely said that from the beginning. And getting some more information. Obviously, when it comes to the rooms, we have to provide that information to DOH anyway. So all the square footage on the rooms, if there was a case, you need to have the square footage for the room and you need to have the spacing for the room.
No, we don't, yeah, but
You
the
do.
square footage doesn't tell you
Yeah, but if you-
distance of the room, or the desks.
Yeah, well, you have to tell DOH how much. So if you're gonna have 18 kids in a room and you know the square footage is X, Y, and Z, you know what your spacing is going to be.
No, not necessarily.
Well, you have an idea. You have to have an idea because if we didn't have an idea, there's no way that the principals could have come up with a 3-foot type of situation.
We actually placed the desks.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, we have an idea. So if there's certain rooms that we know are gonna be 2 feet or something like that, we need to look and start thinking about numbers. We need to get preliminary numbers. You know, obviously, they're not going to be exact numbers, but we need to have some ideas because that's going to affect our busing. Do we need more buses? Is that going to financially be more? When will we order the barriers and when will they come in?
The barriers have been ordered.
But if they're not dealing, the barriers, from my understanding, are okay if what you're talking about are droplets from sneezing or coughing or spitting or things like that. It's not okay for what they're calling aerosols that are up there in the, floating around. So, I think that it's more of an apparent safety issue than an actual one. And if our students are all compliant with the mask requirement, that provides, according to what the science seems to be saying, is the biggest, that plus social distancing is what's providing the biggest avoidance of catching the virus. And if we're going within the social distancing, I think that you're right in terms of square footage of the rooms, and there's got to be some kind of mathematical way to figure out how many square feet per child can be accommodated.
No, DOH recommends 50 square feet
Okay,
per child. However, that doesn't always work out on paper because some of our rooms are narrower than others.
yeah, I get that, but like Ms. Aruda said, it gives you a sense within a few seats probably of how many could be accommodated in each room. And then because of the space issue at Kramer Street, I don't know, is there room at any of the other elementary schools to take some spillover?
I just want to mention one thing. I know that neighboring districts that are going back 5 days literally stripped every single piece of furniture that was on their walls and everything out of the classrooms and literally just have desks, and in some cases even took out the teachers' desks to make it work so they could have most space apart. That means no bookshelves, no cabinets, no nothing. So if they need storage, they put up high shelving for storage, so they could get the spacing to be within, to try to be more than 3 feet apart.
Yeah, we've done that other than the teacher's desk.
So that, I'm just saying that might be,
Yeah,
I think when we did the walkthrough, there was some furniture in them. I remember.
There may have been a few items that were just not removed yet, but we did remove. And now that there's less kids in the class, some things may have gone back and they need to go out again.
Yeah.
So
But it's a
if we
suggestion.
go back to what your plan is, so this week, you've been requiring live streaming for both hybrid and remote learners. That's already gone into effect, right?
At the secondary.
That's, it's secondary.
Yeah.
And then, so next
Wednesday
week-
next week would be elementary.
Next week, you're doing the elementary. I see. Okay.
Do we have the Chromebooks in
Yeah,
yet?
that was gonna ask that question.
I'm
Do
sorry?
we have the Chromebooks in yet?
No, it's into November now.
Well, then, for the youngest learners, if they don't have Chromebooks, then the remote learning is, they're still having to rely on hard copies being picked up or
No,
provided.
we made sure all the remote learners had a Chromebook. We did have Chromebooks, but enough for everyone. We made sure all the remote learners had a Chromebook, and students that are hybrid that didn't have a device at home, we made sure had a Chromebook.
Okay.
So we made sure of the connections.
All right, so, and that's K through 6 has those?
K to 2 and
Okay.
K to 3 is that scenario. Everyone else has a Chromebook.
All right. So, November 4th, I didn't hear anybody have any concerns about not doing that, so.
Well, that was already,
That's
to me,
already
that's an
done.
administrative function. That's already been done.
Okay. And, so then, November 16 would be the next big issue, according to the plan as outlined tonight. And if we have a Zoom meeting, we could do that next week, but not on Wednesday, because Mr. Parker's not available. Is there,
Not on Tuesday, 'cause it's election day.
I know,
Yeah.
I don't know if that, I don't know what people's plans are for that day,
I'm
if
gonna
they
be in
could
line
spare.
all
I
day.
have a feeling we're gonna be
All
online all
day.
day. Have a Monday? Can you get it ready by Monday?
Monday, or is, or no?
No.
No,
I don't wanna put, listen,
Yeah.
our biggest,
I mean, I can tell you,
Exactly, no.
as I said to you earlier, we're gonna be inside 3 feet, in some cases maybe 2.5 feet. That's gonna happen. I mean, but if
So-
you're looking to see exactly where that's gonna happen and how many
That's 3
kids in the
feet.
classroom, that's gonna take some time.
Right.
You could touch them.
And,
Like that, right, that's 3 feet.
and I think that's the fair thing to do. To take
But that would be
time.
regular, no? Is that a normal classroom setting, 3 feet, 2.5 feet?
No, not necessarily.
No?
Their kids are pretty close in the classroom.
So when is reasonable for you to get us what we need?
Well, actually, I'd really like to know exactly what you need, because I've heard a lot of things that you do need. So you want to know how many kids will be in a class and how far they'll be apart in every one of our classes in K to 5.
Around about. Yeah, around about. I mean, I'm not, listen, ideally, I would love to know every single one of them, but I also understand that we are, you know, we're guesstimating on numbers
K to
for,
5. Okay.
Do you want it close
And how
with
many-
the understanding that
approximately how many
because
students
of
are on a
an
bus?
oddly figured room, that
And where
it
they're
might
gonna
be
be
off a
eating?
little bit?
How many students on a bus? That's going to be difficult. I can tell you who will be assigned on the bus, but because families chose not to take the bus, it's a number I really can't give you. I can tell you right now that social distancing is not an issue on the bus. And
Not an
I
issue?
don't anticipate it to
Not-
be an issue as we start to phase kids in,
And-
because most
Well, that's what we're
families-
talking
Yeah.
about.
I know that you're talking
Oh.
about, but I'm.
So I wanna know,
again,
is it gonna be 60 kids on a bus, or is it gonna be 20 kids on a bus?
Again, I can tell you what's assigned to the bus, but I cannot tell you who actually won't get on the bus.
I have a good idea, no, and I'm being serious, of how you can kind of tell without even having to pull this to parents. See who's taking the bus on the first cohort, who's taking the bus on the second cohort. Most likely, they're gonna be in, and add them together. I'll be happy with that. And then, I wanna see where they're gonna be eating lunch and breakfast in the elementary schools.
I couldn't understand what you said.
Where they're gonna be eating lunch and breakfast, because I really don't like the classroom. And then Ms. Felice asked for the minutes for the committee meetings. I don't know where she went.
would it be possible to have the elementary principals meeting with us next, whenever we meet?
Oh, that would
This
be
way
a
we
good idea.
can, we can, we haven't seen them in a while, obviously due to the pandemic, but this way we can have.
I don't know their availability on the dates.
Right, no, I mean,
Yeah.
just if we can extend the offer for them to be able to be there so that we can have open dialogue with them, I think that would be helpful.
I was trying to set a Zoom meeting for next week, and it seems like we're into next
next week.
Thursday.
I'm good with Thursday.
Thursday?
What time, Madam President?
Well, we have working people, so I think you had said after 6.
That's
that's
the
Cameron,
29th?
If it's Zoom, can you do it any
November
earlier?
5th.
No, November 5th.
Is that too early for you, Dr. Gianni?
The 5th?
I don't know that I think I can shoot for that. I mean, well, how many in a class, how far apart, K to 5, how many students on a bus? Where are they eating lunch and breakfast?
And I'd like to know about phys ed and music.
And the minute,
And phys ed and music?
Yeah, what
and
phys ed
such?
and music will look
like-
like at the elementary level.
Why don't we just make,
And I would like, again, to find out about physical activity at the middle school.
Oh, can we just approve that, or no?
What
Can
can
that
we-
be something we could do now?
The middle school physical activities?
Yeah, like to start
Yeah,
it?
Why can't we? We did that
Can we
last
just do that
time.
now?
well, we could, it was just part of this plan to gradually do
Well-
things.
Can we just do that now, though? Since we did high school 2 weeks ago, so now we can do middle school?
I just don't know what that would look like, but if you want to say that we can go ahead and do that.
I'm
we
gonna
can
assume
start
that it would
investigating it.
follow the recommendation that McIntyre had, Mr. McIntyre had.
Yeah, it's a little different because it's not off-season stuff that happens at the middle school.
But it may not need even to be team related.
It could be like intramural, it could be also
Right.
clubs back, extra help back.
why don't we consider moving all the special area subjects to Wednesdays? If there's a discussion about 4 days, why isn't gym, art, and music virtual?
Because physical education is mandatory.
No, I'm not saying it's not, but we're doing it, they're having
Yeah.
virtual, what about the remote? It's the same thing, how's it different?
It's,
Right? Listen, I don't like it,
Right.
but you want less kid, you want, to have more space, great, have music, art. Again, I'm not a fan of it, I apologize to those special area teachers, but there's an option, right? We're talking about 4 days, it was the superintendent's recommendation, make Wednesday art, music, and gym, whatever else. Let's, move all the electives at the high school level
you
to,
can't,
How are they gonna teach that?
well, good, how are they doing it now to the remote kids? That's the point, I mean, I get your point, but.
They're given certain periods, so, on, Monday at 10 o'clock, they're in so-and-so's class. So if they're remote, then they're teaching them. So if you say the special area teachers, you're only teaching on Wednesdays, one, what are they doing the other 4 days a week?
Sure, we can find something for them to do.
You can't just, they're certified teachers.
I get it,
You can't just make them do whatever. They're a certified teacher.
Understood, but if we want to use additional spaces and spread kids out, we're gonna need additional.
You could put them
teachers.
on a cart or something like that. They're pushing into the classroom. You can't.
Okay, listen, it's an idea, right? If
I
we're gonna sit here
understand.
and say that, I don't see how moving special area subjects to virtual on Wednesdays is any different than what we're doing right now, other than the 1 day a week they may have interaction with that teacher. I mean, gym classes, again, I apologize to Mr. McIntyre and all of his teachers who are doing the best they can, but, they're not kicking a ball, they're not playing sports, they're running around in circles, and when it rains, they're not doing much in the gym because there's not space. So what are we spinning our wheels here for? And let's get kids in as much as they can to get English and math and social studies and science. Let's, I'm not really worried about remediating a kid in art in 3 years.
so music, art, and gym are necessary to be spaced out because they are woven into the classroom teacher's schedule that permits for the classroom teacher to have preparation time throughout the week.
They could still have that time, can't they?
Who's gonna cover
You
that
have
class?
no one to cover the class.
You just said we're gonna have a bunch of extra teachers around, right?
So they're gonna go in and just,
Well, listen, why can't they go into the classroom then?
Well, they do. They
They
do at
teach.
the elementary, they do go into class.
Okay, so, listen,
So this date, Thursday,
Okay.
after 6 o'clock? Well, it's gonna be Zoom.
It's gonna be Zoom. How early
So
can you do it?
5:30.
5:30?
Yeah.
6:30?
5:30, Thursday the 5th.
Okay, I'll be late then.
So
I don't know
6?
if I could make
do it
it.
at
I could do 6.
So 6 is
6
fine.
is fine.
when is this, Thursday?
Thursday the 5th on Zoom.
And I'm sorry, I was in the bathroom.
So
The
how early
purpose-
can you be available, Mr. Parker?
Hmm?
How early can you be available?
6.
It's 6.
Perfect for me.
Okay. All right.
And the purpose of this meeting, I apologize, just want to confirm because I stepped out to use the men's room.
The purpose
Just want, what?
is to go for, we're gonna do a couple of things tonight, but the purpose will be to get feedback about the elementary reopening a bit more. And then to start on more for the the secondary, middle school and high school. But in the midst of all of this, if there is a way to, continue to focus on and improve the remote learning, whatever remote learning classes there are now, just to improve them, make them better. The fact that you're gonna have dedicated teacher at the elementary level sounds like a big improvement.
So is the board in favor of moving forward with remote teachers on November 16th at K to 5?
Yes, I think so. That was the sense I had, but
I just have one concern about that. We don't know who's gonna get pulled out once we go full. So I think that it would be better, once we do it, let's just do it all. They switch their teachers. If they wanna come out, then they have a different teacher. Let's just make it as seamless
They're
as
gonna have
possible.
an additional teacher. They're not having.
Oh, so they're gonna have 2 teachers, so they'll still
Not
have
at
the
the
same
same
classroom
time.
teacher?
In the very beginning, the plan is to connect them with another teacher, and the roster teacher remains there.
I just think that there might be a lot more pulled out than we think. Like, I mean,
Pulling
I
in,
guess,
there won't be any pulling out. The roster teacher would connect on Wednesdays.
Oh, only on Wednesdays?
Yeah.
Oh, so then I have no problem doing that now.
Wait, what is only on Wednesday?
The remote
The
teacher.
roster teacher would connect with the remote learners on Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
That's fine.
All right, that was how I understood it in writing, but it was hard to hear the words behind the math. All right, so we have an agreement, I think, with regard to the
Remote
the
teachers,
remote teacher,
beginning November 16th, if not sooner.
right? Why not go sooner? Does anybody?
No problem.
No problem?
Well, I mean, I'll try. It's just-
Right,
it's-
but-
it's-
I don't have a problem.
It would be a
Yeah, so
challenge.
that's approved.
And that's
And
the special, that's the reading and math resource room teachers that are gonna be helping?
Yes.
Reading AIS teachers, not your
Yes.
resource room.
Oh, sorry, I
No,
meant.
no, I, when he said yes,
I'm not a teacher.
No, it's okay. But then when Dr. Gianni said yes, I got a little nervous.
all right, so then we have the information that's been asked for about the elementary class sizes and bus information as best you can determine, and we'll talk about that at our Zoom meeting next Thursday at 6 o'clock.
And we'll extend the invitation to our principals.
Yes, I will.
Does that need to be a vote about the remote?
No, it does not. That's an assignment of the superintendent.
Ms. Felice, is that all right with you?
Yeah, I'm following along.
Okay. So we're up to our Zoom meeting next Thursday,
Yeah, I can do that.
and we'll have further discussion then. And if you can also, look at physical activity being made available to the middle school. Does anybody have any, that's consistent with what we did before, I think, at the high school. So, is that okay?
Yeah, I'm good with
Oh,
that.
yes, that, I understand that. You
Okay.
know, just bear in mind, there was one incident with, 2 cases that had to be quarantined, 2 kids that had to be quarantined because of the volleyball
Right.
in one of the high school activities.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, just, I mean, there were situations, so I just have to err on the side of caution.
The one thing with that, I thought about that too, but at least they're still in that cohort. We're not opening it up fully, because that's another reason. The cohorts are still separated, which is good and makes me feel better about the kids doing sports. But once we open it all up, I think that's gonna be,
There are no cohorts if that
it's
happens.
gonna be hard, yeah.
Gina, you were so kind to send me that article that there's a case that Suffolk County is looking at.
Oh,
Tonight, or would you like me to?
it doesn't matter either way. It actually was our area. There was a birthday party over the weekend, and there's been 30 positive cases due to that birthday party in Belport.
I'm sorry?
There was 30 positive COVID cases due to a birthday party in Belport this week, and it's part of now a cluster. So we have to be careful with that too. So, and I
How
don't.
did you get information about
It was
that?
on the ABC News.
Okay.
Cheryl, do you remember how many people attended the party?
You're right, there were 30 positive cases. No, but you know what? We'll just forward the article that you sent.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
forward
if you
it.
could do that. I just want to make a comment. All the hard work that our administration and our staff, our faculty and the committees that went into the reopening plan, and then the updated and revision components, and the effort that we're trying to make to tread through these uncharted waters and do the best that we can. It's not going to work at all unless the community is supportive of us. And if they're going to have birthday parties with more than 30 attendees, no matter what we do, even if we stuck with the hybrid system right now and didn't move from it, there's gonna be a problem. So it's like it's gonna take the whole community to make this work, and that's families with children, families without children, single people, everybody, anybody within hearing distance of what I'm saying needs to help us here, because we can't do this all on our own.
And just to piggyback on that, if you go out of state and it's a state that you have to quarantine, please don't send your kids to school, because they're finding out that people are coming back from Florida and they're going to school with a tan the next day. So please don't send them to school. They can remote learn and it will help everybody and keep the numbers low.
Okay. So
Thank you.
just to sum up, so that we're all leaving with an understanding. Dr. Gianni, your role between now and next Thursday will be, and you made the notes,
Oh, you want me to repeat it? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
just for everybody, thank you.
How many in a class? How far apart? K to 5? 3 foot, 2.5 feet? What is it? How students on the bus? How many students on the bus? Where are students eating outside of the classroom where they can have 6 feet of distance for both lunch and breakfast? Minutes of the reopening committee meetings, what will phys ed and music look like, and to look at physical activity at clubs at the middle school.
Okay, does that,
Sound good?
anybody think we've missed anything there?
I just wanted to remind you not to forget about the data that I requested. It doesn't have to be on the 5th, but I just wanted to make sure that that's like a priority as well.
Those are the
Yeah.
absence, the reports of the
And the
absence,
nurses report.
and the nurses' charts that
I
we
do-
use.
I have that.
Okay. All right. I think we're ready for Mr. Trent's motion.
No,
No,
we need
that's
to,
up
we
to
need
you.
to consider the purchase
Oh.
of the barriers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
You're
we
right.
have 2 remaining items, business items D1 and D2 for the board's consideration.
Normally, we take a motion and then have a discussion, but if it's okay with everybody, I have a question about it. How many barriers are you considering, and how much does each cost? And are they, like this high, like a trifold thing for a desk, or could you give a better
Well,
description?
You have one, don't you?
I have one in my office.
Can you grab that for us to see, just so we know what we're
Sure, Sarah, you wanna go grab that?
Thank you.
buying?
That's a good idea.
And what did this cost, 5,000, 4,300, what?
What about 45 or 4,600?
So we have just under 4,300 students. We ordered about 4,500 barriers. Barriers are in different sizes. Elementary size is the one that you're going to see now. The secondary size is larger.
And we spent $151,447.
Yes,
Wait, that's,
they're custom.
1.5.
They're custom with polycarbonate. And that was the source that we could get them in time for.
$151,447. And that was money already spent.
No, it's not spent yet.
That's spent, yeah.
Not spent yet, but the items were ordered.
Gotcha.
And when are they supposed to be in? I'm sorry, I forgot.
I think they're
November?
coming in next week.
Next week?
All right, so different in what you see there is the side panels will also be clear. The prototype does not have the clear or the see-through window. That's an elementary size.
And what happens to them so in the elementary school, the children are assigned a desk, and they'll be assigned a barrier, and there won't be any swapping.
No, No,
Does that get screwed in?
no, they attach with a little,
There's
done
legs.
a little
wheels that
clip.
came
a
with it.
clip first.
Okay.
So, is there any cleaning that's going to be done up
There
there?
may be required cleaning
Can I just
with them.
take it in the front so the public can see it?
Sure.
You can put it right here.
You want me to put it around you, Kevin?
Yeah, so Cheryl can see it well. I guess I can be the
Obviously
example.
will be
You
some-
also, yeah,
There obviously will be some required cleaning. We don't anticipate that to be an issue. However, we're prepared to provide for additional hours if need be to do the cleaning.
Perfect.
okay.
Can I just ask a question? Is it typical to order items before we approve?
Well, I was
Yeah.
asked at the last meeting if we would have it on time, and I said that we would. And these are items that I don't think will go unused, because even if you choose not to go inside 6 feet, they will be usable for other items or using while we're at 6 feet. And if we did not order them, we would not have them for November.
All right, so, this is for, on the board consent agenda,
D1
D1
and
and D2. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to approve D1 and D2?
We've already approved D3.
No, we don't, we just need D1 and D2, we did G3.
All right,
that was
right,
the,
right,
entire-
D1 and D2. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Trent, is there a second to approve D1 and D2?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Ancona, any questions or discussion? All in favor? Let's see,
You got everybody at the table. I don't
I
know
got
about
everybody at the table. Ms. Felice, I couldn't tell, are you a yes or a no?
I'm gonna vote against the motion.
Okay.
Mr. Parker's also a no.
Are you a no also, Mr.
Oh, no,
Marks?
he was pointing to
Oh.
Miss Felice and said she's a no.
Oh, all right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yes, 1 no. The motion carries.
Actually, I have a question. When we clean the desk or that spray solution that's in the PPE bins, is that like a mixture of water and bleach?
No, that's called Vindicator. It's a green product.
Okay.
That's what's recommended to be used.
So that wouldn't be harmful in this? Because I
No,
know.
it's polycarbonate. I don't believe so, and that's plastic. I don't believe it would be.
Because at my house, they use bleach and
Oh, no, we don't.
it just is, it destroys things.
We don't,
It
we don't.
destroys things.
No, what?
I thought we did
At first we were,
E1.
in the first initial order, we could use just about anything.
Now we can't.
We don't use it.
E1, did we do that one?
No, I don't.
There
think
was
they did that.
another,
No, we did.
Yes, we did E1.
We did.
we did do that, that was the
D1
extra work.
And D2 was just done. You did D3 earlier, and you didn't have a report to accept the,
No, E, I'm sorry.
E we did earlier.
We did it
Yeah,
earlier.
We did that earlier.
Okay. And now we don't have G to do, and we are down to closing remarks. Ms. Ancona,
I'm good.
Mr. Trent. Closing remarks.
I'm proud that we are moving forward. Although it's late and, we kind of got into it a little bit. I'm proud that we moved forward, and I would just want to share with the community that the board is dedicated to safely reopening the school. And, we're gonna work as hard as we need to. That's all I have.
Ms. Felice?
Yes, I would just like to thank the Early Child Development Center and our pre-K students for the wonderful presentation that they gave us earlier tonight. Seems like it was yesterday. And so for the staff, the faculty and staff, for the work that they've done to put that together. A couple of months ago, we did request the county do a traffic study in front of the South Haven School because it gets very busy and very dicey there trying to pull out when school people get out. I think it was tabled because we weren't in school. Maybe the superintendent, the board of desires can request that be looked at again. One of the items I did notice in the video when the students were walking into school, and I realized they accelerated the tape, so it was going much faster, but those cars were whizzing by that you could see from the front door. So perhaps we could just revisit that traffic study for the safety of those young students.
Mr. Pacini?
No, I think I've said everything. I do have something I alluded to before, and I don't want to get a debate on it. It can fall on deaf ears, but in viewing social media lately, I mean, is it possible we could socially distance enough so that when we take pictures of our students, they can take their mask off so we can see their smile? I mean, it's a big deal for a kid to get publicized for something, and I saw pictures today of, kids standing there with masks on, and I just thought it was sad. It would be nice for the grandparents to see a picture of their kids with, I'm sure we can put kids 6 feet apart. If they can take their mask off for a picture, if they can take it off to eat, I think we could figure that out. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Parker? Ms. Aruda?
Just want to say what Trustee Felice said, thank you to South Haven and to our pre-K program. That was adorable. It was a wonderful way to start our evening tonight. And again, to the community, we are dedicated to your children, our community, our staff, to safely try to come up with a plan that will reopen. But it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time, and it's going to take some answers to some questions. So we ask that you just be patient and know that we are doing this for love for our community and our children.
Okay, your time.
And I'll sum up and just say I also thank everyone at the South Haven School for their presentation at the beginning of the meeting. It brought a lot of smiles to our faces, even though nobody can see them. I also want to thank everybody that responded to the survey or took the time to write an email. Every comment was considered. I could hear it in the comments made by everybody in the board. And I just want to reiterate how important it is that we all work together as a group in order to get our youngest or our next generation through school safely, healthy, providing the best education we can under the circumstances, and please avoid any outside activities that may interfere with the best laid plans that we can come up with.
Amen.
So, Dr. Gianni, thank you to you, thank you to your team, the faculty team, the teams that had input into this revision, and thank you for continuing to work with us on this, and we look forward to our Zoom meeting on the 5th at 6 o'clock. Mr. Trent.
I make the motion to end the meeting.
So we started with a smile, we end with a little laugh. That's good. Who's gonna second, Miss? Oh, goodness. Take your pick. I saw the hands at once. Okay. Should I pick one? Or did you pick one?
Saw Melissa's hands.
Okay, you saw hers first, so Ms. Aruda made the second. All in favor of adjourning? I think this is gonna be unanimous if yes, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.